Hello there, and welcome back to the Senate Podcast, episode 47. I am joined, as always, by J.J. Abrams' son. I have a bone to pick with your father, by the way. He'll be hearing from me.
I have a bone to pick with that introduction. Thanks.
As always, Caleb Johnston is with me. I'm hosting this episode. Sorry to disappoint you, I guess, but we are talking about,
and there goes all the listeners.
We are finishing our retrospective on the Star Wars movies, except for the two side movies. But
so I was just thinking about that. I want to, because this is the last one, which is crazy because we started this over a year ago.
Yeah,
and we're finally on the last one in the saga of the 9 movies. I would like to do the shows and the other movies, but I think I feel like Star Wars is just going to go on in perpetuity, but I don't think we have to. I think we could just wrap this up in a nice 9-part series that's 10 hours long. So
it'd be a lot cleaner than they did. So
actually, it'd be more than 10 hours long. But yeah, it will be. It'd be a lot more well put together, well produced than the yeah.
Even with our non-existent budget. Yeah, so we are finishing up the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which has been an interesting ride because, I say this is my favorite trilogy, and it still kind of is, but also, like, as we'll talk about it when we wrap up the end of the episode, our final thoughts, revisiting this whole saga. But I'm tired, guys. I'm very sleepy. And so I don't really know if I have a favorite trilogy anymore because I'm kind of tired of this franchise, as I've said before. I don't like saying that, but it is what it is. Star Wars is always gonna be weird and go in strange directions. But enough of that. So before we talk about the movie, what I've been trying to do throughout these other retrospective episodes is talk about our feelings and thoughts, anticipation, all that, leading into the movies. So, The Last Jedi ends, right? And a lot of Star Wars fans were like, what the hell was that? What are they going to do now? Where could they possibly take this story? Which, let me just say right out of the bat, was always weird to me. Like, people acted like Rian Johnson, like, put the franchise in a corner and left it unable to do anything. But I feel the opposite. I feel like there were so many things they could have done, so many interesting directions they could have taken the story. You have Supreme Leader Snoke's dead. Kylo Ren's the new Supreme Leader. Rey is, the Last Jedi. Luke's dead. So many things I don't understand, and I was really looking forward personally to seeing like what Kylo was going to do, because we'd never see. That'd be like if in Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader killed Palpatine. Be like, oh, okay, well, what the heck's going to happen now? And then, seeing.
Well, I'm glad you point that out because it does show where there is a deviation in this trilogy from the past.
Yeah,
which is interesting. I was listening to someone talk about this recently, and he said, I don't even know who the person was. I just saw it on YouTube short. And he said that the one thing that he really liked was the fact that they did try to do something new when it was all said and done, which is what I think, succeeds in the sequel trilogy because, we'll get into our thoughts about some stuff, but it really was just retelling the original trilogy. But like you said, imagine if Vader would have killed Palpatine. Well, we kind of get that now. We get Kylo killing Snoke.
Yeah.
So this is new territory, and we did not know what to expect at the time.
Yeah, and then, seeing that trailer, I'm going to be fully transparent. I wanted to rewatch. I think there were 2 trailers. There was a teaser and then the regular trailer, and I just forgot. But I remember, the end of the trailer, you hear a laugh, a very familiar laugh. And then people are like, that's Palpatine. So that, fan speculation, just like at the end of The Force Awakens, just starts running rampant. People are like, they're not going to bring Palpatine back, are they? I mean, surely like they wouldn't be that dumb. um, so maybe it's like Kylo Ren or somebody stumbles upon like a pre-recorded message that Palpatine left, or maybe he like cloned himself or something, because I guess that'd been a thing. I'm not really up to date at all with the expanded lore, so I don't know about that. But I mean, cloning has been a thing in Star Wars movies, so there was so much speculation, and they knew what they were doing by putting that laugh at the end of the trailer. Like, I think they should have saved it, as we'll talk about, but I was really curious to see that. So, what was your thought process and anticipation and all that stuff leading into Rise of Skywalker?
I was okay. I didn't know where they were going to go. All I know is I was hoping for them to commit to something, and that would be Kylo switching sides and then Rey switching sides. I wanted to see Rey just give in, go down the dark side path, and I wanted to see Kylo get redemption. And that's what I was hoping for. The last thing I wanted was Palpatine. So when they committed to that, I was like, this is the one thing I did not want you to commit to. And then they committed to it. And then everything else they just didn't commit to, which we'll get into. My biggest issue with the movie is that it just would not commit to anything.
This trilogy, in particular, this movie, is like when you're raising a toddler and, they like, everybody talks about, the terrible twos and stuff. And like, they specifically do things you don't want them to do. And that, that they know will piss you off.
And they do it.
There were so many good things you could have done. Why did you do that? Why did you draw on the fridge? Why did you knock my vase down that I paid $3,000 for? I don't know who'd buy a $3,000 vase. I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know who would watch this movie, but here we are.
Good.
We watched it.
So, I'm going to be honest here, folks, just real quick before. I know I'm stalling because I hate this movie. I've had a back and forth thing with this movie, but I ultimately just think it's a pile of shit. And I'm using my swear word card early. This movie sucks, and it makes me sad.
Yes, I completely agree with everything you just said in that sense.
I might kind of flip out a little bit. I'm going to try to be composed, but Caleb, I'm going to need you to possibly help me steer the shit back on course, because I don't know where I'm going to go.
Well, that's fine. And what I'll say is this is what I want. It was very hard to watch this movie again.
Oh,
because
God. I was so checked out.
Because
towards the end.
Yeah, I would constantly get sidetracked by anything, just everything. Anything would sidetrack me. I did not want to actually commit to watching this, but I want our episode to be the opposite of that. I don't want us to get to make this as uninteresting as that movie. Let's try to get some value out of it.
I was debating whether or not to bring out my bottle of whiskey for this one, but I was like, no, I shouldn't be drunk on the podcast. But as Anakin said in The Phantom Menace, now this is a terrible movie. I think that was the line. Anyway, let's go. The opening crawl in this movie sucks. I hate it.
It's so bad.
It makes me the dead speak. Now I saw a quote from either J.J. Abrams or Chris Terrio, who wrote this movie. He wrote Batman v Superman and Argo, and now he's writing this schlock.
He also helped write Jurassic World Dominion, I believe.
His
good movie.
Career's been very strange lately. That's interesting. I don't think he's a terrible screenwriter necessarily, but also,
or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was Justice League.
So I saw a quote from one of them saying that like with that they were trying to capture like a cheesy cartoon / serial vibe, which as we've said,
never mind, it was Justice League. Sorry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What, the Joss Whedon version?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't feel good. Yeah. So Star Wars started out as George Lucas wanting to do Flash Gordon, and then he couldn't do that, so he made his own sci-fi serial. So I don't mind that. That's fine. But dude, like they say off screen that Palpatine's back. Actually, technically, I don't know if you know this, but there was an event before the movie came out in Fortnite, where Palpatine like broadcasts a message, and if you were logged in at that time, you could like just be there watching the message. I'm gonna be silent just so you can let that sink in, because I couldn't make up something that stupid. All right, so we have Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. It mentions that. I love that because it's like, psych. Nope. He wants to fight Palpatine to preserve his power. Like, this opening crawl reads like somebody writing fan fiction or playing with their action figures. Like, I'm gonna have Kylo Ren fight Palpatine.
That's what this felt like.
What is going on?
And not in a good way.
Yeah, like people say, The Force Awakens feels like fan fiction. It feels like fan fiction written by somebody who mostly loves the franchise. This feels like fan fiction written by somebody who just wants to write the biggest pile of crap they possibly can.
So what it feels like is somebody that wanted to undo another person's work and continue
I know.
their
I'm getting
work.
to that.
Okay. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. You'll get to it. But that's what this feels like.
Abso-freaking-lutely. Even though JJ says otherwise, I don't believe you, you freaking hack.
Yeah.
All right, so we see Kylo Ren on a planet, and I'm going to be reading a lot of what I wrote just line for line because I think I riffed really good. So, the Rise of Skywalker in a nutshell. Quick space shot, then we're thrust into action that we know nothing about. This sequence of Kylo Ren on, I forget what planet, is admittedly kind of cool, but what's the context?
It's Mustafar.
Read the... Oh, yeah.
Yep.
What's the context? I don't know. It's probably in the novelization. Like,
yeah.
He's fighting these dudes, but it's like 5 seconds long. Like, it's like the quickest... Like, what is going on? And this is the entire movie. And then I love how...
To add to that, because you mentioned novelization...
God, the novelization.
I remember there was a big, thing going on when this movie came out, whether or not secondary material like a novelization was necessary to understand the primary material, like the movie.
It shouldn't be, but
it shouldn't be.
For this one, it is, and that's the problem.
And that's why people were bringing it up, because if you remember, for our episode 3 retrospective, I pretty much read the novelization.
Yeah, and
it added so much, but you did not need to read the novelization to understand anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just so cool, everything that I believe Matthew Stover added. But with this, like you said, you don't even understand the context of anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and even in the novelization, it makes it more confusing. But yeah, I mean, it's always cool to get some background detail, but it's to the point in this movie where you don't even understand what's going on unless you do that, which is just poor execution, all that.
Yeah. So. And the reason Kylo Ren's here that I don't think we're told, and if it mentions it in the crawl, I probably wasn't paying attention. Sue me. He's looking for a Sith holocron, which is like a triangular thing that you put into the dashboard of your ship, and then it's like a GPS, and it leads you to a secret location. Which try not to think about it. I don't know.
Do they refer to it as a Sith Wayfinder?
Oh yeah,
because it is like a holocron basically. But.
Yeah, Wayfinder. I don't even remember what a holocron is, so I don't know where I got that from.
Hold on, is it the same thing?
Yeah. It's not hidden at all. Like, he kills these guys, he turns around, and there's like a stone chamber thing. He opens it up, and it's right there. Like, this could have been like a cool like Indiana Jones sequence where we see Kylo and he takes a journey to this place, and he's like making his way through caves, avoiding traps people left there, fighting people, using his wits, and then he finds a thing, and it's this big moment, like, oh man, look at all that he went through to find this thing. No, he fights a crew of guys in 5 seconds, turns around, finds the thing, and then in another abrupt transition of shots, plugs it into his ship, and then flies to where Palpatine is. It is the most this movie is allergic to pacing, allergic to trying to set any kind of mood. It just wants to get to the next thing, and if you don't like it, well, screw you.
So I have information.
God.
Critical information. So this is actually kind of interesting. this was not necessary for to be in the movie, but it's cool. Sith Wayfinders are shaped like Sith holocrons, but the Wayfinders are four-sided rather than the three-sided holocrons. Here's the difference. The Wayfinder holds coordinates to a point in space, and the holocron holds information. So I saw they compared the holocron to being like a book where you can actually sort through the information, and that's what they had at the Jedi Temple and stuff like that, I believe. And then the Wayfinders act like a modern day compass. They point into directions and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting.
So another in this quick montage, Kylo Ren flies to where Palpatine is on Exegol, and dude, I never caught this until rewatching it just recently. But like, this is supposed. Think about it. This is where Palpatine is, gathering in secret with his cult, and he's hatching this plan to take. It's not even remotely sealed off. Like, it's like hovering in midair, and there's like a sizable crack anybody could just walk through. Oh my god! So
doesn't this make you appreciate the Camino sequence in Episode 2?
Yeah,
because how intriguing was that to watch? Whenever Obi-Wan went to Yoda.
It basically didn't exist.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan had to, actually try to find it. Here, Kylo Ren didn't have to try to do a damn thing.
And the way that George does that in Episode 2, it's literally in a classroom full of kids, and then Yoda's like, amazing the mind of a child. Obi-Wan lost the planet, and they'll start laughing. It's like enjoyable. With this, you don't get anything.
Yeah,
but
nothing.
Nothing. But the one thing I will say is I do respect. There's a lot of bad cheesy dialogue in this movie, but I do respect some of the sequences, and I'll point them out where there is no dialogue, and I do like that. It's exposition. It's what I like to say sometimes, as in it's exposition through the means of the filming, and not necessarily exposition through dialogue. So even though you see him in this sequence throughout the beginning, he's obviously searching for something, and it doesn't tell you outright where or what he's doing specifically, but then you get into it. And actually, the first voice you hear in the movie, I believe, is Palpatine's, which I kind of have an issue with. He shouldn't have been in the movie, but yeah.
The YouTuber, I think it was. I don't remember if this was this YouTuber, but I think it was a Cosmonaut Variety Hour or someone else that I can't remember the name of. They said, like, what if they didn't reveal Palpatine was in the movie, and then like fans were like shocked to see him show up? That would have at least been cool.
Much better.
Like it still would have been like, why is he here? This is awful, but it would have, but whatever. So, a small bit of why I hate this movie is because there are a few things in the movie that I actually do not hate. I like this sequence. I was in the theater, and I was thinking, wait, this is actually creepy. Kylo's making his way through this like weird, like ruined temple type place, and there's like,
and you see like a statue of Revan or something.
Yeah, there's like cool statues of like these like old Sith people or whatever. There's like a stadium filled with like these like weird shadowy figures that they don't show close up. Like chanting in a creepy way. It's dark. He's looking around like, where am I? What the heck is going on? Like it's the only time Star Wars has ever been creepy, and I wish it would do it more often, because this and that episode of Visions in the second season when those kids
like
are
Sith
in that cave
or something.
Yeah. Did you see the Star Wars Visions episode in season 2 when those kids are in that cave, and there's like some like lady there who's like a Sith or something, and like they think she's like this like weird crazy lady, and it's like creepy. It's like a horror movie.
No,
that was cool. Like I wish Star Wars would just be scary sometimes, because that could work. So I was like, this is actually cool, and then it immediately gets ruined because Palpatine says something, and then Kylo's like, I killed Snoke. And then Palpatine's like, my boy. I created Snoke. Now, in a good movie, this would have been a metaphor. Like he made Snoke the man he was, and then it would have been like,
Yes. Yeah.
Snoke worked with Palpatine. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, no, because like 5 seconds later, it freaking zooms in on some tanks, and you see like a bunch of Snokes. So Palpatine literally created Snoke in tubes scientifically. Are we going to learn more about that? No.
It's like this isn't Palpatine from.
I don't even know what to say.
This isn't Palpatine from the originals or the prequels. It's the Palpatine from the Robot Chicken universe. That's what this feels like.
That's a great way to put it. Holy crap. And then, so I like Palpatine's reveal, how like it like shows him in shadow and he's just there and he looks creepy as heck.
Well, he's like a puppet.
Yeah, he's like
on strings.
attached to like a chair or something. Like it's genuinely creepy. I'm serious. But like there's this weird, like a few times in these movies we've seen somebody with a lightsaber try and strike somebody and then somebody else uses the Force to stop them, and you could tell because it's like filmed in a way where it's like they're coming up against some kind of resistance. Kylo pulls out his lightsaber, swings at Palpatine, and then it seems like he just stops. And then he's like, what could you possibly offer me? And then it's like, dude, why don't you just kill him? He's not trying to fight you. Like, why did you stop swinging? Like, this is why you came here, to kill him, right? Now you're here and you're like asking how you can help him. Like, what is this?
So not
it's like The Last Jedi didn't happen.
Because I don't think they intended for this, but Palpatine's whole way of fighting people is through manipulation. He's the kind of Sith that keeps his weapon hidden, and he uses, different tactics to stop his, enemies. So he kind of took advantage of Kylo and was like, this is, I can offer you this, whatever. So he this is kind of in line with his character.
Oh yeah, but I just feel like it. I
but
just hate
you're right.
it.
It's like,
like it's like I don't feel there's a reason. Like it'd be different maybe
100%.
if like Kylo was still the person he became at the end of the last movie, because believe it or not, there was a movie that came before this, and he like maybe like fought Palpatine and just like got his ass kicked, and then he, in an effort to spare his own life and possibly like try to kill him, he acted like he wanted to serve him, like he was playing a part. But he like he like says that here, but like it doesn't feel, it just feels like he like slowly starts to get sidelined, and then it just becomes the Emperor Palpatine show for the 20 millionth time. And like I don't know, I like they emasculated my boy so bad after he was such a badass in the last movie.
Well, and the whole theme is of the last movie, destroy the past or whatever.
Exactly.
Kill it if you have to, whatever. But they do the opposite in this movie. They just bring all the past back. It's like,
yeah. So I have here. I love how Kylo Ren became his own person in The Last Jedi and becomes a lapdog again before Act 1 is even over. And then Palpatine pulls a fleet of ships out of the ground, and I wish I was drunk.
The Final Order. That's
oh my God,
creative.
All right, so we cut to Poe, Finn, and Chewie on the Falcon, and I actually like the
this sequence.
Banter here. They're playing that chess hologram game.
That was a cool callback.
I actually don't know what it's called. I might know, but I keep forgetting. And it's like they're like to Chewie, "Are you gonna make a move?" And then they're like, "I don't know how he's beating us all this time. He probably cheats." And then Chewie flips out, and they're like, "We're just kidding." And then Chewie walks away. He's like, and then they're like, "Yeah, he's obviously cheating." Like it feels like the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Like just classic fun dialogue between characters. And then we find out they receive a transmission, and we find out there's a spy in the First Order. I'll get to this later. And then I like the flying sequence here, genuinely. Like I was having fun in the theater, with like, the large screen, and the sound was great, and they
Star Wars has always had great flying sequences in
sure.
every movie.
It's
undoubtedly
like one of the few things you could basically bank on all the time. And then they start light speed skipping. which totally breaks the canon laws. But
I
at this
like it.
point, who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah, whatever.
When I was
You know,
watching this during the movie, I was like, I don't care at this point what fits and what doesn't fit. This is cool to see.
it is, but it also like in A New Hope, they make a big deal out of like if you
Yeah.
screw up traveling at light speed, that could have very severe effects. But then in this trilogy, they treat light speed travel like it's nothing, like it's a toy. Like okay,
It's a
fine,
weapon.
screw it.
Okay.
All right, so then we cut to Ray, a forced Ray training sequence to appease the haters. Too late. This is a pattern in this movie.
When I was watching it, I was like, where was this sooner? I mean, it's the third movie.
It is way too late for this. Like, why?
It's too late.
Well, why'd they even bother?
It in of itself isn't a bad idea,
Yeah.
but it's like, okay, we get it.
Like, it's like echoes to Luke training on Dagobah, but that was in the second movie.
That was in the second. So when Luke enters in his third movie, he is the Jedi master.
He earned that. Rey, I hate to say it, didn't entirely earn much of anything, just beyond Luke sacrificing himself, and now she is actually the last Jedi.
I really, I actually really like Rey in the first and second movie, Force Awakens, and Last Jedi. I do not like her at all in this movie.
Yeah, not at all. I like her like she gets angry like she does throughout these movies, and like because like she keeps getting shot by the droid that's firing the lasers, and she's getting like mad, and then she kind of loses her composure a bit. Again, like we've seen, but we'll get to her arc in this movie and how it makes me want to run over a whole flock of geese. And this is really weird. In the first movie, she beat Kylo Ren, but she can't beat a sphere shooting lasers. That overpowers her, and she like freaking flips out, like so that she can throw a tree that falls and then almost crushes BB-8, and then she could be like, "Oh my god, I'm out of control!" Like, what? Like, who wrote this? I'm gonna be saying that a lot, by the way. Like, who wrote this? I don't know. All right, and then she gets visited by Princess Leia. Now, this is the first point of the movie that I want to talk about for a bit. So, we mentioned in the Last Jedi episode that Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away before the movie was released. And they were clearly building to Leia and Kylo Ren having a confrontation of some kind. We don't know exactly what they wanted to happen in that. So in this movie, she's here using a combination of CGI and like archival
old footage
and dialogue. And I'm gonna say this: they did that as good as they could have. Like, there are genuine moments.
I think they did a great job with it.
I don't know where she ends and the special effects begin. And you talk about the uncanny valley. This is the most uncanny valley crap I've ever seen. Like in that scene where Leia and Rey hug. Was the hug fake? I don't know. And that's almost impressive.
Apparently, I'll just I know we're going to go out of order a little bit. Try not to, but you have to keep me on track at this point. Apparently, the kiss at the end was fake.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that. So
I'm gonna look it up if it was fake. I'm pretty sure it was fake.
I mean, I wish it was fake in the sense that we all dreamed it and it actually
it never actually.
Yeah. So, but I ultimately hate this because like they could have just as easily wrote her off by saying she died like in between The Last Jedi and this movie, and this. In Rogue One, they had CGI Grand Moff Tarkin, which was terrible. Like, it would have been fine for one scene, you see him in the back and he's looking in a window and you see his face and it's like, oh crap, that's Grand Moff Tarkin. Okay, cool. And then they have Leia for 5 seconds and it's weird. But this kind of started that trend of Disney using like young CGI versions of characters like they're doing with Luke and the Mandalorian. Like, they know fans hate it, but they just keep doing it. So, ultimately, I feel like how they use Leia in this movie and how they brought her to life, as impressive as it is, kind of started or made that trend even more prominent. So, what are your thoughts about all of that stuff? Like, are you for it, against it, or do you land somewhere in the middle?
Are you asking me the ethics of it?
Yeah, like, how do you feel? Like, do you think they should have had Leia in here through artificial means, or just wrote her out of the movie?
Fun fact, which is why I'm so glad we do retrospectives. I actually wrote a paper about this in college, and it
I think you
was
told me
for
that.
For Rogue One about Grand Moff Tarkin because he died, and they completely used his likeness in the movie and CGI, of course. And it was about the paper was about the ethics of it. And I don't think it was a paper where I took a stance one way or the other. I was just kind of talking about the whole idea of it because it was unprecedented at the time. But like you said, they do this again and again and again. But
Yeah.
they did it with Leia here, and I think out of all of the times that Star Wars has done this, whether it be with Luke, whether it be with Han Solo, I'm trying to think all the times they did it, whether it be with Grand Moff Tarkin, whoever. I think what they did with Leia right here was the best they've ever done it. I think it was fine.
Yeah,
I
I definitely
genuinely
agree.
cannot tell
Yeah.
what is real or not. When I was watching this in theaters, obviously I knew that she wasn't in it per se, but I couldn't tell watching it. I had no idea. I think they did a great job.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm not envious of the filmmakers and their task here because, like, how do you
Yeah,
even start to try and bring that to life? So, Ray meets up with Finn and Poe, and I like, Poe and Ray kind of arguing with each other, because they're both similar characters in certain ways. Like, they're both headstrong, and, they're like natural leaders. Like, they have that temperament. And it's like, gee, if only this dynamic could have been, I don't know, developed in the last movie or something, instead of trying to cram it in here. And
it was
then,
supposed to be with between Finn and Rose, but she's non-existent.
I'm
You know,
gonna, yeah. And then I like this exchange between Ray and Finn where she's like, "What, bad mood?" And then Finn's like, "Me." And then she says, "Him." And then Finn's like, "Always." But like the way John Boyega says it, like, yo, I think we can all agree
his
John
acting in this was
Boyega
amazing.
got the absolute shaft in this trilogy, and it got worse as the movies went on. But he tries his best to at least give something resembling a good performance in this movie, and that's just how you know that he really loves his job and he really takes it seriously because
I
he
actually
doesn't
like all of
necessarily
the
feel like he
actors.
doesn't
Yeah,
want to be here. He feel like he probably didn't like the script and the circumstances, but he really seems like he still wanted to be here and was actually trying. Everyone does.
yeah,
So
yeah. Everyone does, and I think it comes down to who's directing, who's producing, who's writing, and not the actors at all. The actors are doing a great job, and Ray's supposedly coming back for her own solo movie, and I'm actually not. I feel like the ship has sailed. It's too late, but if they can pull it off, I'm kind of excited for it because I think she's a great actress. So
oh yeah, for sure.
if they can pull it off, but I think it comes down to, like I said, the directing, the writing, whatever. So yeah,
Yeah, well, I saw this quote from John Boyega where he was basically saying that like I think it was like towards people who criticize this movie or something, but he was like, just appreciate that JJ came back and tried to fix your shit or something like that. So it seems like he wasn't a fan of how Finn was treated in Last Jedi, and I mean, I can't blame him, especially after the Force Awakens and how
he did say that
they
he
probably
wanted
made him
him to
think
be.
he was gonna
Yeah,
have one
yeah,
role, but then it was like,
yep.
actually, no, screw you.
That's what I was going to
Yeah,
say. I do remember that yeah, JJ did want him to, or said that he should have been force sensitive, and throughout this movie you could kind of see it happening, and then of course at the end they hint towards it. So
so okay, here's something I want to get your opinion on, and I didn't remember that it was in this movie, but Poe's mad at Ray for not being out in the field with them, but instead just like being like choosing to be there training. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Throughout this trilogy, I never got the impression that Rey would like back down from a fight because she hasn't been so far. So, do you feel like that's like inconsistent with how she's been portrayed in the previous movies? That like now she's suddenly like, I don't want to be out there. I just want to be here because I have to, learn how to be a great Jedi and yada yada yada.
No, it's consistent because she's always been selfish like that. If you think about it,
Hmm.
kind of like not her first, but what is my place in all this? She's always kind of focused on like, you know, herself. I mean, she doesn't come from like the resistance like Poe does, or the First Order like Finn does. She's been by herself most of her life, so she's kind of focused on herself. I think it's consistent with her character, but it's
Huh.
not like Luke, where Luke, grew up and he wanted more. He wanted to join, the basically wanted to join the rebellion. He did, and then he wanted to keep helping out, and then he left. And then when he came back, they celebrated in Return of the Jedi that he was back. So it was kind of like opposite of Rey, where they're like, Rey, where are you? We need you. And she's like, well, I'm figuring out, this Jedi stuff. I'm figuring out myself, all this. So it's just a different take on it, but I think it is consistent with her character.
You know what? I think that actually makes sense. I kind of don't know why I thought that. Huh. Interesting. Okay. So I wrote here, prepare for a BS smorgasbord. Just all you can eat nonsense. Okay. So Poe is standing before everybody and he's like, he has a message, that they received an encrypted message from the spy in the First Order.
It's so bad,
and
dude.
they
It's so
decrypt
bad.
it.
Is this the Sith language part?
And then this is a fantastic scene.
This is even worse
because Poe, he stands before everybody and he gives a good detailed explanation for how Palpatine's back. Are you ready? He says, somehow Palpatine returned. I wish I'd never been born. If you look closely, you could see Oscar Isaac question his life choices.
And the random guy from Lost they threw in this movie
to do nothing except say stupid cringe dialogue that the fans would say. He's a great actor, and they screwed my boy over, and I feel bad for you, Dom. I still love you, though. I can't fault you for this. Who wouldn't want to be in a Star Wars movie, And then, some freaking jackass who has like one line, he's like, that can't be. Palpatine's dead. And then Beaumont Kin, the character we were just talking about, he says dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew. Glances over at Attack of the Clones. Like, only the Sith knew how to What? So the Kaminoans were Sith. Those people that Palpatine paid to create a clone army were apparently
it's
Sith.
like somehow
only the
they
Sith
forgot.
know how to clone.
So somehow I guess they forgot that cloning is like an established thing in Star Wars. But I think what they should have said is, we've seen clones, but we've never seen a clone of somebody who was Force capable, which is something the Sith have figured out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. And then,
but I don't know.
And then the whole Exegol thing feels like, okay, I don't know. Maybe you do. That's why I'm not going to make any claims to stuff that I don't know anything about. Was Exegol a planet in any way before this movie? Because it feels like they just pulled it out of their butts, but I could be wrong.
I'm 99% sure that it was not. I will double check.
And then Rey. Oh no, wait, no. And then Maz Kanata is here to tell us obvious information and nothing else. I don't know if it's her, but she's like, Palpatine was always in the shadows from the very beginning. And then John Cena shows up and he's like, are you sure about that? And then,
Yeah, so it was invented for the Rise of Skywalker.
of course,
Sorry.
and then Rey conveniently has information about Exegol in one of Luke's journals. So he found out that Palpatine was planning a comeback, like an old band from the 70s or 80s, and he didn't tell anybody. So I have to believe that that wasn't a thing, because I'm pretty sure Luke, even in his state, would have told somebody about that. And I'm going to talk about that again later, because Lando drops an even stupider bombshell about stuff Luke was apparently, and I'm like, you know. And then I actually like this line from Rey. She tells Leia, "I don't want to go without your blessing, but I will." And who does that remind you of? Luke in Empire Strikes Back. You know, he wanted Obi-Wan and Yoda's blessing to go save Han and Leia, but he was like, I'm going to go with or without your approval. And I think that's interesting. You know, like, she's kind of starting to show that she's like Luke a little bit in some ways. I think that's cool. You know, I think that's obviously something that I wish would have been expounded upon, but and then, you know, she's like, I have to do this alone. And then Poe's like, yeah. I mean, Finn's like, yeah, alone with friends. Another great line. And then
Yeah.
and then Finn basically tells Rey, Rose, you stay here. You're not allowed to be a character in this movie. Because, you know,
I feel
fans
bad
didn't like her in the
for her.
freaking last movie. And then
Maybe it's maybe it's not her. Maybe it's the way she was wrote.
Yeah, kind of. But I mean, just write her better, you hacks.
That's what I'm saying.
Jesus.
So I have some information about Exegol I would like to share.
Exclusive time.
Yeah. Breaking news exclusive from the Senate podcast. Was there any mention of Exegol in the Star Wars universe before the Rise of Skywalker film? No. In the Legends continuity, the world of origin for the Sith was Korriban. As the story goes, a faction of Dark Jedi were banished from charted space by the Jedi Order. In their exile, these Dark Jedi discovered Korriban, whose natives, the Sith, had rudimentary dark side powers. The Dark Jedi conquered these Sith, ruled over them, and even interbred with them. The Dark Jedi declared themselves to be the lords of the Sith. Over time, the natives, known as Red Sith due to their skin color, died out, but the Sith as an order of dark side users remained. J.J. Abrams came up with the rubbish name Exegol, which sounds like the name of an over-the-counter painkiller, either because he didn't want to get in any entanglement with the creatives who came up with the name Korriban, or because he simply never looked it up. So here we have it, Exegol, for headache, pain, and corruption by the dark side of the Force. Glad to be of service.
Dude, that would have been so cool to like see like Kylo Ren stumble upon the ruins of this ancient civilization. Nope, Palpatine, bitch. Sorry, I'm swearing a little too much, but and then
like it would have been cool to see like those Sith acolytes or whatever the cultists from the Sith Eternal cult that Palpatine had there. Like all of that sounds like this story, but like wouldn't it have been cool to see him stumble upon this planet where the natives were Sith that came from the ancestors that were they were the descendants of banished evil Jedi and the native red Sith of that planet. Like, I don't know.
You could have done like a psychological thing with that. Oh my god. And then Leia hugs Rey before she leaves, and in one of the biggest retcons in this whole movie, she's like, never be afraid of who you are. And then Rey has this look on her face like, what you talking about? You
know why? Because of what Luke says towards the end of the second act, where he's like, yeah, Leia knew the whole time.
I'm gonna save that for later, because that's probably gonna be when I jump off a cliff and I'll never be on this podcast again, and you'll have to grieve my passing. Okay, so the Knights of Ren show up out of nowhere.
From where were these guys the whole last movie?
What were they doing? They were probably in heavy space traffic, I guess. And this is one of my favorite things that I wrote. An ape fixes Kylo Ren's helmet. An ape fixes Kylo Ren's helmet. I don't know what you want me to say. So I get what they were trying to do with this, with the reconstructing of the helmet, and it has cracks because he's putting on a facade again, but there's cracks in the facade. Yada yada, but it's bad execution, and it feels like JJ giving Ryan Johnson the finger yet again. And then they have Kylo attend a meeting with everyone else, and they make a stupid joke about it, where Kylo's like, "Oh, General Hux, I sense unease about my appearance. What, your helmet? No, I think it looks good. I like it." What is this? Saturday Night Live? Stop pointing it out. It's stupid. Stop pointing it out. Stop trying to be meta. All right, sorry. I gotta cool off. So Rey, Finn, and Poe go to a planet called Pasana. And again, I'm gonna praise the movie. The practical effects here are stellar.
So
Fantastic.
remember, I think I texted you there. I said there's one thing I really want to commend this movie for, and
it's this?
it is for the visuals.
Oh yeah, dude!
Throughout the entire movie, it has some of the best in the entire saga.
Yeah, and the production was rushed because, for those who don't know, Colin Trevorrow, famous for Jurassic World Dominion, right? That's the third one.
Yes.
And Safety Not Guaranteed, as well as the Book of Henry, which I know what that plot's about, and I think he was on some quality crack when he wrote that thing.
Jurassic World Dominion is an absolutely amazing movie.
I kind of want to check out the other ones, but Jurassic World to me was everything I hate about blockbuster filmmaking. But I like Safety Not Guaranteed. I think that's genuinely a great movie with great performances. It has an interesting story. It's independent, like it feels ambitious, and like it knows what it's trying to be. So I mean, maybe he would have made a good movie, but he got axed for creative reasons, like a lot of people that dare to not fall in line with everything.
I think he had very good ideas, but I don't think
there were some
for a good
things
movie.
in the. I'm going to bring up a few things in the script here and there, but I don't think it sounded great, but it sounded a heck of a lot better than this.
Yeah, the ideas were there, but I don't know. I don't think it would have been a good movie. But
I actually don't even know why I brought that up. Oh, yeah. So, this movie had a rushed production because, they brought back J.J. Abrams, and he had to, essentially try to patch holes in a ship with super glue and duct tape. So, they did the best job with the time they had. I could say that. And it's amazing that in that state, the practical effects the special effects look as great as they do. Like, I genuinely don't know how that happened.
I love the set pieces in this movie. I think, they really know how to do action and adventure. And I think it looks great. Like you said, the practical, the CGI, I love it all. I think it's really good.
Yeah, and then the children you see here watching the puppet show are puppets. Like, incredible. It just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then Rey comes across this lady who asks what her family name is, and then she says, "I don't have one. I'm just Rey." And it's like, wow, that would have been a better message or something. I don't know. What do I know? I'm not a screenwriter. And then Rey and Kylo Ren have a confrontation. And bro, I don't usually do this, but I had to write down this entire exchange line by line because it is just the most sterile, sauceless, on the nose exposition, treat the audience like they're dumb dialogue I've ever heard. "I offered you my hand once. You wanted to take it. Why didn't you take it? You could have killed me. Why didn't you? You can't hide, Rey. Not from me. I see through the cracks in your mask. You're haunted. You can't stop seeing what you did to your father. Do you still count the days since your parents left? Such pain in you. Such anger. I don't want to have to kill you. I'm going to find you. And I'm going to turn you to the dark side. When I offer you my hand again, you'll take it. We'll see." Like, no, Is that the best thing? Like, dude, their
It feels
dialogue in The Last Jedi was great. My favorite stuff in the movie. This is like they're just saying like things on a surface level, and it's like, this is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm gonna do. Come on.
There was so much nuance in The Last Jedi,
Yeah.
but there's absolutely none in this movie.
Good.
Except for one part of the movie, which when we get there, I actually cannot wait to talk about.
Actually, there's a confrontation with them later that I actually think is pretty good, which I'll talk about, and I'll give credit.
I think we're thinking of the same part because it's a very good part of the movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then it ends with kind of an expansion on the Force Skype calls that we saw with Rey and Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi, where he takes her necklace. And, that's one of the few things in this movie that actually feels like an expansion of the last one. Because if you remember, it was either their first or second time having that happen to them. Kylo Ren has some water on his glove from when it was raining on Ahch-To, where Rey was. So we know you could transport matter from one place to the next in this, when this happened. So it's like the one time that the movie actually expands on something set up in The Last Jedi. Yeah. And it's like, wow, that was pretty good. Then, why can't you do that again?
And then they tease it, and then they expand on it even more at the later, which is good. I don't like that aspect, but I think, like you said, the way
I think they took it too far, but it's at least expanding an idea. Set up,
Yeah.
Like, okay, fine.
Yeah. And the Force Skype in this was cool because he was manipulating her. He was trying to figure out where she was, so he got her angry. She destroyed the thing, and then he was like, "Oh, that's where you are." And that was awesome.
Yeah, that was actually cool. And then Lando shows up, and it's like he's wearing a costume, and he's using a...
I could not with this, when I saw this in the theaters.
He's freaking using a modulator, and it's like, who's this guy? And then he takes off the mask. He's like, Wookiees stand out in a crowd. And then it's like, hey, Chewie. And it's like, oh, I recognize the character. Cool. I like Lando, but like, he has like nothing to do here. It's like...
No, I'm not saying why to you, but why is he in the movie? Yeah, he's cool, but...
Yeah, and then he says he and Luke found out about Exegol, which is just the most convenient nonsense ever, because it's like the whole, like, oh my god, like in The Force Awakens kind of, and even more in The Last Jedi, the whole point, at least that I got from Luke leaving, was that he wanted nothing to do with any of this crap. So like they set up all this stuff that we don't see with like Luke on these adventures and figuring out stuff that's convenient for the plot of this movie. And it's like, when did this happen? Like, why are we just hearing about this random nonsense? Like, I guarantee you they didn't think of this until they were trying to hash out the screenplay for this movie. Like,
they talk a lot about past events in this movie, and then there's one time where they actually show a flashback, and it's... I at this point I was so checked out of the movie, but they do show a flashback, which was cool. But movies, I hate when movies do this. They constantly talk about things that have happened, but they don't show you. So yeah, like you're saying, him and Luke found eggs, blah 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 blah. It's like none of us watching care. We want to see it.
And then like he tells him that, but then they're like, "Oh, you need to come back and fight with us." And then he pulls that thing where like, I'm retired. I don't do this anymore. Shut up. Get out of my face, you idiot. Stop wasting my time. And then he says, give Leia my love, in like a creepy way, which, okay, in Empire, when he meets up with Han and Leia on Cloud City, he like, starts like flirting with Leia. But I took that as like, he's like a charming guy, and he did that to like annoy Han, and then like Han doesn't get like pissed off about it. He's just like, okay, Romeo, stop it. Like he's just like, this is how he is, he's just like that. And it's like a fun moment. But like here, it's like, dude, does he not know that his best friend's dead? Like, well, why is he like creepily talking about his best friend who passed away's wife in this? Like, why did they frame it like? I don't know. I don't know. I want Lando dead. Like this one moment, I'm like, okay, you can kill him. Like just kill him. Like I hope Palpatine electrocutes him and he just blows up. Like
Yeah.
this feels like a caricature of Lando. Honestly, I don't even have any other words to say about it, so I'm just gonna move on. And what proceeds is admittedly a pretty fun chase, in my opinion. You know, it's a typical fun Star Wars action set piece. There's that joke where the other stormtroopers they have like jetpacks and then they start flying and then everyone's like, they fly now, they fly now,
They fly now.
they
They
fly now.
fly now.
So I know people were really pissed about that joke because they were like, oh, they turn Star Wars into the MCU and stuff. But what did you think about it? Because all the times I've watched the movie, it's never bought like it's not Star Wars humor, I guess, but I don't know, it never felt like that jarring to me.
It was when I heard it again this time. It definitely stands out, but whatever.
I mean, it kind of feels like it was written by Joss Whedon,
Yeah,
which
literally, that's a Joss
yeah,
Whedon thing. Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
All right, so then I heard a YouTuber point this out, and I want to know what you think. Like Finn was obviously a stormtrooper and stuff.
Yeah,
He was raised in the First Order, and then he left in the Force Awakens. And in this movie, there are a lot of moments where he's helping to kill other stormtroopers, and he doesn't seem like conflicted about it. And like here, like there's that part where like he makes the speeder crash, and then it blows up, and then he's like, "Whoa!" He's like cheering as like his
stormtroopers
old
die.
comrades die. Like I feel like they could have explored, like how he feels fighting them and stuff. But like it just seems like, oh no, it's just fun. He like
Well,
I don't know.
it's interesting because in the last movie, it's like, oh, we need to save the horses and don't let the horses die. But it's like, if we're made in the first movie to understand that stormtroopers are people too, why are
Yeah,
we just celebrating killing them?
exactly. Yeah,
No, that's been the precedent in Star Wars. It's funny how George got away from it in the prequels, which is something underrated we never touched on. It was the fact he replaced humans with droids and clones.
yeah,
So it was like clones and droids. It was more of like an ethical ambiguity rather than humanizing stormtroopers, which I think is a cool idea to humanize stormtroopers. But like you're saying, they kind of just don't follow up on it you know like why not show like him conflicted with killing stormtroopers, because even though they're brainwashed people, as they go to say later in the movie, they're still people, but he just kind of celebrates killing them, which is fine because it's been like that since the beginning. But why not double down on what they started in the first movie?
yeah. I've always thought for a franchise called Star Wars, they've never gone as full into like the war aspect, with the exception of Rogue One, and I guess A New Hope is probably the other closest. But like aside from that, like they never felt like war movies to me, and that always bugged me. Like even rewatching them, I was like, I wish they would actually talk about this stuff. But like it just seems like they could be fighting anybody, and it wouldn't matter. Like sometimes I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely feel like the original trilogy felt like war movies more so than the prequels and sequels.
Yeah,
The prequels, obviously, when you get into the Clone Wars stuff, it does feel like war, obviously, like the end of episode 2 and a lot of episode 3. But episode 1 was kind of like an espionage type of movie almost, and
yeah,
political thriller in a way. Uh, it was a weird way to put it. And then 2 was kind of like a detective, slash romance, thing. It was just kind of
yeah,
different.
yeah.
But like you said, Rogue One kind of gets into the war aspect, which is cool. Um, and then the sequels really don't get into the war aspect at all. It's more of a, I don't know, it's a little different.
If only it didn't have to be so family friendly, then they could like really tell. uninhibited stories.
Andor. I'm going to throw this out there.
Yeah, I still gotta watch that whole thing.
We love Rogue One because of what you're saying. It's the war, blah blah blah. It's a little bit more intense. Andor, that is like, that's just, it's good stuff, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait. All right, so then they eventually crash into like, I don't know if it's sand. It's like these black rocks. It's essentially quicksand, but it's not. And then that's like, that just feels like, oh, plot contrivance, whatever. And then there's that moment where Finn alludes to like having a secret, but then he doesn't say it because they sink. And then so this is kind of interesting because have you ever heard of Hollow Earth?
Yes.
It's like yeah. Yes. So I'm assuming that some planets in Star Wars are Hollow Earth because they fall through quicksand and then end up in a cave. How does that make sense? I have no idea. But I mean, I'm not going to say that, that's like a knock towards the movie. It just feels kind of random. But then, they end up in this cave and then, Finn's like, oh, I'll tell you later. And then Poe's like, when I'm not here. And then he's like, yeah. And then he's like, we're going to die in a cave and we're keeping secrets. And it's like, this, like, some of the tension among them just feels like really ham-fisted. Like, it's just there for no reason. Like, because there has to be some drama. I don't know. And then,
it just doesn't fit. But,
Yeah, like they're walking through yada. Oh, and then quick transition to Wedge Antilles. He's in this movie. He's talking
randomly,
Leia and Rose, and he's like, he says, I forget what he says, and they're like, do you have to sound so negative? And then he's like, he says it in a more upbeat way, and it's supposed to be a joke. And dude, like, so Wedge is one of Luke's oldest like childhood friends, right?
Yeah.
It was Wedge and Biggs, which are actually, I'm pretty sure those are references to Final Fantasy VII always has Final Fantasy games always have two characters named Wedge and Biggs. And we know the producer of Final Fantasy VII was a Star Wars fan. So it's funny. I actually
that is a cool
never really pieced that together. But like, like Wedge is like this important character who's been part of the rebellion and stuff. And I think, wasn't he one of the people that inspired Luke to want to join the Empire and stuff?
So that I know what you're saying. That I'm not sure of, but I know obviously once he got in, he was, his boy.
Because for like, as much as I don't love how Lando's in this movie, at least when like the characters meet him, they're like, you're Lando Calrissian, like they acknowledge that he has a reputation and he, he's this decorated war hero. They treat Wedge in this movie just like an absolute joke. Like, he's just there to be a freaking bumbling idiot. And it's like, if they were going to do that, why'd they even have him here? Like, he does nothing and he's not funny. Like,
there was probably a team that Lucasfilm created, and the team was for the purpose of bringing back people from old movies. Now, to the capacity they have in the movie, they were like, oh, well, let's just bring him back as a fun nod. But it's like, we don't want that.
Yeah. He doesn't do anything, as far as I know. I mean, maybe when I zoned out, he actually did something. But like, so anyway, we cut back to the main crew, and they're walking through this cave, and they find what I'm going to call the plot contrivance dagger, because Rey touches this and she can see that it was used for some, really terrible things, like to kill her parents and stuff. Now, that is a thing in Star Wars. I don't know if it's been in the movies, but it's been in the video games. I know in Jedi Fallen Order, that's one of the features. Like, you explore like a cave,
Force
and
Echo.
you come across points, and then Cal can see things, and that was like the stuff I liked most about that game.
Yeah, can I point out something?
That was cool. Yeah,
Force Echo, really cool ability. They show it a lot in Ahsoka as well.
Oh, cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
But then, other people have pointed this out, and then I was like, oh yeah, that is weird. Rey can sense that from this dagger, right? But when she picked up Anakin's lightsaber, she couldn't tell that he used it to murder a bunch of kids and Lord knows how many other people. So it's almost like they pulled this ability out of nowhere specifically for this movie, and they didn't think about how it might fit in the wider context of Star Wars or something. Like it's almost like that
This
happened.
sequel trilogy feels like a reboot. It doesn't feel like a sequel. Like a sequel, it literally means like the next installment, and this doesn't feel like a
Yeah.
next installment. This just feels like a what you would call in comic books a soft reboot, where you keep a lot of the same things, but they're not the same. It's like what they're doing with Daredevil in a way where it's like a soft reboot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's the same things, but it's not really the same universe. It's like a it's like an Earth 2 type of situation. Like, oh, they're the same things, but this just happened. The things happened a little bit differently in this iteration. Yeah.
I mean, I've heard people say that with the world between worlds thing, which I know very little about, that they could technically put this trilogy in like a separate universe from the main one. And I mean, look, if they can find a way to write something like that and make it make sense, whatever, I don't care. This franchise is weird.
So, people are like, "Oh, time travel's not a thing in Star Wars." So, in the world between worlds, it's like not time travel or whatever, but it is kind of like time dimension. Like out of time, out of space type of place. But I'll say this, man, Star Trek does this so well. Their sci-fi. I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan in the world, but I really do like Star Trek a lot. And Star Trek Strange New Worlds does this thing with time travel and where like you're saying, like something happens in a timeline and then they're kind of like, "Oh, let's play with that by, time travel and stuff in sci-fi." Star Wars is the place for it, and they could make a story where they do something like that, not just to retcon the sequels, but
Yeah.
like if you watch Ahsoka, they do go to the world between worlds. That's a big thing in the series, where it really does affect. It doesn't. It's not like essential. It's not like time travel where it's like, oh, let's go back in time and change something, and then when we come back, it's not the Back to the Future type of thing. It's a little bit different, and I think they could play with that. I mean, this is sci-fi, it's Star Wars. Like let's have some fun with it. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's an interesting concept, but we'll never get that.
Yeah. All right, so here's a really weird sentence. Ray force heals a giant worm. There's a giant worm in the cave. It's wounded. Everyone's ready to fight it. And then Ray's like, wait, it's wounded. And then she heals it. And then it leaves them alone. Now, in a vacuum, I like this idea a lot because this kind of feels like something Luke might have done in his older age, when he was like, after Return of the Jedi, when he's like, I don't want to be a stereotypical Jedi. Screw you guys.
Yeah.
You're all weird. I'm going to do my own thing, as Miles Morales said in Across the Spider-Verse.
I'm going to do my own thing.
Force healing has been in some of the video games, in Revenge of the Sith. That's a mechanic. And then it's fun, like balancing your horsepower, like it's like, oh, I could heal here, but I don't have that much power, so should I let it recharge or should I just, it's like this fun thing in games. But for some reason people got mad that they put it into a movie.
I thought it was cool.
And and I'm just going to point out, everybody had a problem when Ray did it in this movie, right? Nobody gave a damn when Grogu did it in Mandalorian Season 1. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not saying anything. If you think I'm saying something, that's a projection on you and how you're thinking, because I didn't say it. But I don't know. Just interesting.
It's a cool concept and thing, but it's just, a lot of things, it's execution. And I think, the randomness of the situation they were in the first place was just like, who really cares? So, yeah.
I mean, I wonder too, like that, because they brought it up, now you have to think about it. And it's like, I wonder, like, how severe somebody's wounds have to be for it to either work or not work. You know what I mean? Like, cause
Yeah,
like Kylo Ren does that to Rey when she's like, you know, dying. So it's like you can do that. So would Luke have been able to save Vader in Return of the Jedi if he knew how to do it? Now we have to ask those questions, and that kind of makes things weird, unfortunately. So that's the tricky thing about introducing new abilities. Like it's cool and it should be done, but also people are
it's the
going to
way you
ask
do it.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, execution.
Okay, so this next sequence makes me feel like I'm having a stroke. So I'm gonna try to go slow, but there's a lot to unpack here. So Rey stays outside to play chicken with Kylo Ren's ship. Finn tells Chewie to tell her that they have to go, even though she already knew that they had to go. But she's like, "No, I'm gonna stay out here to play chicken with Kylo Ren," and then Chewie gets captured, and then Rey thinks she blew up the ship Chewie was in, but that was the other ship that was there for some reason. Also, how is Rey powerful enough to grab ships? So I I don't understand what the hell even happened here. It feels like they just had to progress the plot, and they were like, "Why don't we have Rey backflip over Kylo Ren's spear thing, whatever, and then slice it, and then they'll have a tug of war contest with a ship, and then she shoots lightning, and then that blows up the ship, and then she thinks everybody thought Chewie was dead for like 5 seconds, and then they were like, no, 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 it's cool, it's cool, it's cool, it's cool. This movie has absolutely no stakes. So I don't know. Do you have anything to say about
Yeah, I
whatever
do.
this
I
is?
originally loved this. When I was in the theaters and I saw this, I actually loved it because a few things. I thought again. I think the visuals here are awesome. Kylo Ren's ship, the TIE Interceptor, I believe, is super interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's something that we haven't seen before, so I like that.
it's not the
I mean, as
Interceptor.
far as I've never seen it before, I'm sure other people have. If it's a thing, I don't
Uh,
know.
not the Starship, the TIE Silencer. The Interceptor is something different, but I think yeah, it's a TIE Silencer. Anyways, um, it's just it reminds me of an Interceptor, but um, it's a cool ship. I like it. I think her doing the backflip thing was cool. Whatever.
Yeah,
Um, you know, whatever. It was cool to see. And then the tug of war. At this point, I was like, okay, it's third movie. Let's have these guys, be kind of, more powerful than they were previously. And then she shoots lightning, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool because Jedi could shoot lightning. It's a ability called Force Judgment, and one of the Jedi that had it was Plo Koon. He was in this prequel trilogy. It's a light side form of Force lightning. So she used that, and then I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And then they killed Chewie, and I was like, "I love this movie now because they're committing to something." I was like, "It is actually crazy that they just killed Chewie." I'm like, "Wow, I actually can't believe they did this." And I'm like, if they're doing this now in the movie, I'm like, I wonder where it's going to go because they actually are committing, you know, to killing these characters, not just like random people off screen like Admiral Akbar. They're actually like doing something, and then 2 seconds later, he's back,
yeah,
and that's what ruined the movie for me. In the theaters, I was sold. Watching this, I was like, okay, we're undoing the Last Jedi. We're having some really cool set pieces and visuals. A wacky story. This is like becoming a little bit more like Star Wars, and then Chewie's back. And oh wait, she's not using the Jedi version of Force Lightning. She's actually Palpatine. Oh my god. It just gets
yeah, like
worse.
yeah, like
Whatever.
that was clearly the filmmakers just trying to foreshadow because they haven't
Yes.
done enough of that already. Like, who's the only character we've seen in a Star Wars movie, mind you, to shoot lightning?
Yeah.
So
I
it's
thought
like
they were
they
gonna
like
deviate from
they
that in a cool way, but
like they like if they wanted to leave that mystery through this movie, they should have let it be a mystery. Like in Attack of the Clones, George, his writings on the nose in a lot of ways, and I'm not always a fan of it, but he let us go on this journey with Obi-Wan to figure out what was going on. Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams left nothing to the imagination in this movie, and it's like, come on, dude. Like, if you're gonna do something weird to, have a really weird reveal that's just gonna throw us on our backs, at least let us figure it out in real time. But they couldn't even do that, so it's
No.
like, why bother?
Why? Yeah, why bother? I saw it, and I'm like, why even bother doing that in the first place? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so then at some point, Ray mentions that I guess when she touched the dagger or something, she had a vision of her as a Sith. That's interesting, but I came up with something in The Force Awakens called Plot Point That Leads to Nowhere. PPTLTN, as I call it. That's the acronym. And that's just another one of these because it comes up in the movie again for 5 seconds. And then it's like, okay, that subplot's done. That subplot's done. Okay. End of that. We're moving on. And it's like, you can't move on from something you never even did. What do you...
Well, my thing is like she was battling with that in The Last Jedi, and
Yeah.
why is it back? Like, why are we rehashing this? Like, we had that already.
Yeah, like I
With
felt
the same
like the
character.
ending. I felt like the ending of The Last Jedi, it was Luke when he, in my mind, when he said, "I will not be the last Jedi." That was him being like, I wanted the Jedi to die so that it wouldn't become something unknown to me. But I'm fine with that now. Like, Rey's not like me. I wasn't like Obi-Wan and Yoda. That's fine. I'm willing to let the concept of a Jedi evolve.
Yeah.
But no, that's not at all what they did. And that would have been so interesting.
That would have been way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so another instance of lazy writing. They lost the dagger, but C-3PO has it in his memory because this movie is allergic to steaks. I do like the moment where like Finn grabs Rey's hand and then he grabs Poe's hand and then Poe's like hands and then Finn's like hands and then he like begrudgingly grabs his hand. Like I like to see that like Finn, he's grown into somebody that like is really friendly and just like loves his friends. He's like found this family and he just loves that. I think that's cute, and Poe's kind of like not the most affable guy, so he's like, you see what I have to put up with here. Like I would have liked to see that actually fleshed out, but I mean, it has some fun moments here and there. Dio is a droid that they find, a broken droid on this ship. I forget where he even comes from, and they fix him up. He's the most useless character of all time, and he's also voiced by J.J. Abrams. Is there a connection there? I don't know. But
no comment.
How do you feel about
no comment.
Screw him. I don't know why he's here. He's not even cool looking. Like at least like R2, BB-8 look cool. They have like fun design. Dio is just a cone on a ball. Screw him.
No
I wanted
comment.
him to die. Okay. Okay, so they go to a planet where Poe grew up, Kijimi, and now here's another thing I'm going to praise the movie for. Even though this planet is only in the movie for like 5 minutes, like every other thing in this movie, because it just likes to rocket along. Kijimi is one of my favorite Star Wars planets. It's so cool looking. It has like a gritty sci-fi aesthetic, like Blade Runner or something like that. I would love to see other stories set here because, we're like dropped here and it's like, yeah, the Empire's like going house to house, kidnapping children and stuff like that. And there's like a mini conflict going on. And it's like, that sounds so interesting, but we just see like brief glimpses of it. And I don't think that's necessarily bad, but like, with the pace of this movie, it's like, it's just here. And then it's like, okay, bye. That's, see ya.
I just want to say too, That's an awesome planet, like you said. I love in the Lego game, the Skywalker saga, playing through the Rise of Skywalker may have been one of the most fun of all the episodes
Really?
out of all nine.
Hmm.
Yeah, it lends itself very well to a video game. And I remember, when I was playing that, really all of the sequel trilogy episodes, I think, were the best in that game out of all of the
Hmm.
movie episodes you play as. Like, you go through episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but 7, 8, 9 were done very well. And I think it was probably just because we've seen 1 through 6 before, so they really focused on 7, 8, and 9 because we haven't seen that before in Lego. uh and I could tell they really put a lot into the Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker. But the Rise of Skywalker in that game was awesome. One of my favorite planets was this one because it was just like you said, the aesthetics of it, everything, super interesting. And I think that's one thing you can praise the sequel trilogy for. Like honestly, all three movies, cool locations.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether or not they were executed great, is left on the table. But the you know, they look cool. Whatever.
I'd like to explore some of these planets in the video game. So maybe I did want to check out the Skywalker saga at
It's
some
good.
point. So
Yeah.
I might check it out. I mean, like I've heard some not
Quick
great things
aside.
about
Yeah.
it, but I mean, I
Quick aside.
still
There. Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of people saying there's it's not that great, which it's not. It's kind of a boring game because it's so open. It's
mm,
so open that you're kind of just wandering around. But like me as a huge Star Wars fan, I didn't mind just wandering around these planets. There's not a lot to do sometimes, even though it's so big that it kind of makes it boring. But like, dude, I ran around Coruscant so much. Like like there was a lot to do because the game's just so big, but sometimes there's just these big empty spaces and whatever. I mean, it's fun. It's worth it if you're a Star Wars fan. You know, whatever. It's not the greatest video game in the world, but like you can travel to like every planet, any planet you want to.
oh
So it's pretty
sweet.
cool. Yeah.
All right, so they run into a lady named Zori Bliss, who was friends with Poe when he was a spice runner. They were in the same crew and clearly had a romance. I like the established history, even if it comes out of nowhere, like a lot of other stuff in this movie. And
I feel like if you do that in a third movie, do it like this because,
yeah, this
yeah.
is one of the few times in this movie where it feels like I felt like we got every impression that we should have, like rather than, because
Yeah.
I love George, but if he was writing this, there would have been like a 5-minute exposition sequence explaining exactly how they met and exactly like we don't need that. Like we got everything that we needed. Some stuff clearly went down and she's kind of mad at him, but then we find out later that she still cares about him and maybe really wasn't that mad at him in the first place, but just pretending. Like it's interesting enough as it is. And I thought it was cool, I thought it was fun. Um, and then Poe calling out, Finn's like, "You were a spice runner," and then Poe's like, "You were a stormtrooper," and then Rey's like, "You were a spice runner," and then he says one of my favorite lines: "You were a scavenger. We could do this all night. Come on." And it's like, yes, Poe, tell them. I
Yeah.
don't know why they're suddenly being a holes to you. You know, that's weird, and they're being hypocrites. Like, oh, you've clearly lived a less than civil lifestyle. Like, what? Like, you're all.
Here's what yeah,
Why are
it's
you acting like you're better than Poe? All this, like, what is this?
this is something you do in the second movie.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not something you do in the third movie because it's cool because he was supposed to be you know a person that grew up in the resistance, so they figure out he's a spice runner. It's like, oh, that's a shock, but like that's not something you do in the third movie like this. But I get it.
Yeah, like that's why like one of my biggest problems with The Last Jedi has always been that they split up these three characters because like imagine like if they were together in that movie and like like things reach a pitch and there's like a fairly long period where they're just at each other's throats. They're sick of each other. They're pissed off. They're arguing all the time. And then, by the end of the movie, they grow closer. And then in this movie, they could just be a family and care about
Yeah.
each other. And that's
Like
it.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
don't know. And then, Zori, she's like, oh, there's a bounty on Rey. I could get a lot of money. And then I don't understand this, because in The Force Awakens, the action sequences were good. Finn fighting the stormtrooper with the lightsaber was
Amazing.
good. Finn fighting Kylo Ren, Rey fighting Kylo
Awesome.
Ren, freaking great. All these shootouts, great. There's an action sequence here that feels like it was edited by 5 people on crack. There's so many quick cuts. I don't know what the heck is going on. It's over in like 3 seconds, and then Rey knocks down Zori, and then suddenly she doesn't want to kill her, and she's like, I think you're pretty cool. You wanted to turn her in for money like 5 seconds ago because you're poor and your hometown's being ravaged by the First Order, and you want, money so you can get out of here. And, you're mad at Poe because he left you hanging, and there's this other guy who you've never met. Who cares about him? Now you're like, I think you're pretty cool because, the way you, tried to beat up me and my crew 5 seconds ago.
No comment.
I don't even know what to say. So I'm just gonna move on. And then they go into a cool hub area that's like a club, and then it's their workshop, and then we are introduced to one of the greatest Star Wars characters of all time.
Honestly.
A character so good that even people who didn't like this movie were once united. Everyone in the fan base was united. People who hated this movie, people who liked it, were united in their agreement that Babu Frick is the frickin' man. I love this guy. He has like 5 lines. I've never seen his species before. I want a Babu Frick show right now. Why don't we have a Babu Frick series? Honestly.
So he does appear in Mandalorian season 2, I believe.
Oh yeah, it's one of his species, right? Like it's not him.
Yeah, it's not him. But it's one of the species. Honestly, amazing character. I love him.
The droid is ready.
Yeah. Keep going. I'll be right back. Keep going though.
I love it. Okay, so then we find out that C-3PO can translate the message that was on the dagger, but it's written in like an old Sith language that's forbidden to speak. He's a droid. What's gonna happen? Is the power of the dark side gonna blow him up? I have no idea. And this is actually an emotional scene because C-3PO, as we know him, is about to die because he's gonna forget about everything. And there's that great line from him where he's like, I'm just taking one last look at my friends. And, I've never really liked him. A lot of people never liked him. He's annoying. He's always like lecturing people. And he's like, oh my, I don't know about this. I'm so scared. But like in this movie, he's the best he's ever been besides maybe A New Hope. And this is I actually was sad. I was like, aw, he's going to forget about everyone. Am I feeling sad? Well, if you were, it's okay because it gets undone by the end of the movie. So who cares about anything? Everything is meaningless.
They were going to commit here to this, and they didn't. So,
like the second thing they didn't commit to. And then we quick cut to Kylo Ren talking to some of his subordinates, saying, "Oh, we tracked them. They're on Kijimi." And I forget what somebody says, but like. He like turns around and he does the Han Solo point. He's like mad. He's like, and it's like, he's doing the thing that his daddy used to do. I like that. That's like, a good example of nonverbal storytelling and character, and
best character.
Adam Driver's a great physical actor. He's a great regular dramatic actor, but like when he's not speaking and he's just like using his like face and body language, he still kills it. And that's the mark of a truly talented performer, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, where the heck? Oh, Zori invites Poe to leave the planet with her, and I'm gonna play a devil's advocate a little bit. Why did she forgive him? Maybe the script sucks, and that's why she's not mad at him anymore. Or maybe, just to play the devil's advocate a bit, maybe she actually never hated him for leaving in the first place. I think that's interesting. Like he shows up and she acts like, like she's mad at him and stuff, but she's showing quickly that she was sad that he left. And now that he's back, she wants to leave with him so they can actually be together and not be separated. And I actually like that quite a bit. That's something in this movie where I'm like, it's as concise as it needs to be, and I think it's good. And she ended up being one of my favorite characters. And there's a moment where she like opens her visor and it's just her eyes because her mouth is still covered by that part of her helmet. And dude, Carrie Russell emotes so much in this scene with just her freaking eyes. Like you just look at her eyes and you just see like her whole history. It's great. I really like these small moments scattered through this movie that I think are genuinely really good. And it's why
dude, it's crazy. Yeah,
I can't say that's why I want to say I flat out hate this movie, but I don't. I mostly hate it, but I have a soft spot for it, and it's because of stuff like this.
I hate it as a Star Wars movie, but as a movie, there are moments.
Mm-hmm. And I actually like Poe here. Is Poe the best character in this, or the second best character in this movie? Maybe.
Let me think. Yes.
Okay, cool. I'd never really thought of that, but I'm sticking to it. I like Poe feeling insecure here. He's talking to Zori. He's like, I don't feel like I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm put in this position, and then like it's a moment of continuity that I feel like is natural because in the Last Jedi was about him learning what it takes to be a true leader and stuff, and now Leia's he's like in this spot and he's like, I don't know, I'm starting to have doubts. And it's like I personally like that. I wish it was explored more like everything else, but I like Poe having a moment where he just takes off the armor for a second, takes his mask off, and is just honest with somebody for once. And how appropriate that it's somebody from his past. So I like to think that like he can't not be himself with her and just be honest about how he's feeling because she's like that with him. And I want a series with these two, honestly. Like make it like a classic like adventure, sci-fi, fantasy love story or something. I'd watch the heck out of that, honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
And then Zori says one of my favorite lines in the movie. They win by making you think you're alone. So, you can apply that to like, like people in life who try to bring you down. But that actually got me a little bit because, I interpret it too as like, like you think about just like negative emotions or thoughts, and it's like, like your anxiety, your depression, your anger, whatever, it wins by separating you from other people. And if you don't do that, it can't win. And I think that's a great sentiment, and it fits really well in Star Wars and sums up a lot of the themes and stuff that we've seen, And then Poe asks if he can kiss her, and I thought that was cute. She just like like laughs like, "Oh, you," and it's like she clearly wants to kiss him. And then she gives them a coin so they can instantly get onto a first order cruiser, which is a Deus Ex Machina kind of, but considering she's been wanting to leave the planet and she came upon that, I'm gonna let it slide just this once. It's not bad here. So they get onto this cruiser and it's like empty. It's empty for a while. They don't come across anyone. They're just like walking through, and then they come across 2 stormtroopers. Rey does the mind trick. It says, "It's okay that we're here," and then they leave. And it's like, remember A New Hope when, like, as soon as they got onto the Death Star, it's just instant tension because they're surrounded by people. How did they drop the ball so hard with this? I don't get it. Like, it's boring for a while. And now I don't know if I was losing it by this point, Caleb, but I actually like the camera work in the shootout sequence. Like, it's actually fluid and it's tracking everyone and it's like spinning around, to Poe over here, and then it's like spinning around to Rey, and like it's fluid directing. And I'm like, is this the same movie? What's going on here?
I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of the directing in the very first Star Trek movie of the reboots that he did.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good. I didn't think about those when I was watching this, but yeah. Yeah, like
specifically that one, just the action in it.
Yeah, that's why I do love him as a filmmaker, because he knows how to make the camera move and feel like a part of the scene and a part of the movie. That's great.
Yeah, definitely.
So then Kylo confronts Rey again, and now he's acting like he intentionally hid information, even though in The Last Jedi he made her acknowledge what was true.
This was such a like contradiction. Like, I don't know.
I do like it that like it feels like classic Star Wars mind games, where it's like he's like trying to tell her something, and she's just like, stop talking, and she's like slashing, and he's just like bobbing and weaving. Like,
it definitely does feel like Return of the Jedi. And I mean, you can't act like George, didn't make stuff up as he went to.
Yeah.
Like, there are contradictions, blatant ones in Return of the Jedi. So like, whatever. But like, didn't we learn from our mistakes?
Yeah, I like
it's not saying that it was perfect in Return of the Jedi and Empire when there were contradictions. Yes, there were contradictions, and he made stuff up as he went. But we love it in spite of that. But it's like, why are we doing the same things if we didn't like that back then? You know what I mean? It's like we're like it because that's what we got. But why are we doing it again?
Yeah, I like the like it's like flashing back to her on the ship and then him on Kijimi, trying to find her and stuff.
I do like the scene a lot.
And then I really like that moment. Like, it's really subtle, and again, great, subtle performance by Adam Driver, where he wants to know where she is, and then like she swings and he like avoids it, and then she knocks over Vader's helmet, right?
Yeah.
That he has in his room because of course he does. And then like it falls on the floor and shatters, and then he's like, so that's where you are. Like, that was genuinely funny.
I loved it. Yeah.
It was funny.
Great
and, like, humor.
Eerie. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Because like I just he's like the way he moves and how they frame it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I like it. That was honestly a good moment.
And then this is one of my favorite things I wrote down. Also, Palpatine's son was a failed clone, but you'd have to read the novelization to know that. So for a while, people thought Palpatine had sex.
You would never know unless you read the book.
I'm going to let that sit for as long as possible. People thought, because they didn't know the book existed, that Palpatine had sex. What more do I need to say?
In his old age. Like,
and being the embodiment of evil. Cool. Okay. I like the sequence. Great acting and strong tension make this retcon slightly less painful. Slightly. Okay, so Hux is the spy in the First Order. That's a fun idea that goes absolutely nowhere. When have we seen that before?
It was a fun idea, and honestly, the execution wasn't bad, because I do like the line. I don't know if you have it wrote down, where he says,
I don't care if you win. I just want Kylo Ren to lose. Yeah, like he hates Kylo Ren. Like and
they've been building that each movie more and more. So it does, like, when they did that, I was like, okay, I understand they're like grasping at straws here for a good story. But I'm like, this does make sense, and the way they do it, whatever.
And in A New Hope, we've like seen that like there was always kind of bureaucratic infighting.
Yes.
Like certain people don't like Vader, and then he chokes the one guy, and he's like, "I find your lack of faith disturbing." Like they were like
This is a similar
butting heads with
concept.
each other, and then Grand Moff Tarkin was having none of it. He's like, "Vader, stop!" And
They do
then
this a
he's
lot
like,
in
"Fine,"
Andor as well.
So it's like I feel, like I don't think it. I think it fits in Star Wars to have a guy in this First Order who hates the guy who asserted power and hatches a plan to take him out secretly. Like I feel like that would have been fun if we actually got to see it build throughout at least part of The Last Jedi. Like it didn't have to be through the whole trilogy necessarily, but at least longer than it was here. Like I don't know.
Too little, too late.
Yeah, so Rey's a Palpatine. She's Palpy's granddaughter. I wish Thanos had snapped me too. And it's an obvious reshoot because the AD, like if you know anything about ADR in movies, it's a thing inserted if like they have to like change dialogue because maybe the original audio recording was bad or they want to change something, and it's usually done when somebody's not on screen. So if you notice, Kylo's talking to Rey, right? Like you have his power, and then as soon as he says you're Palpatine, it transitions to Rey by herself against like a plain background, kind of. And so that I I read, I don't know how valid this is, that Adam Driver recorded that line in his closet because they had to like quickly do it.
What a joke.
And I would not be.
What a
And she said in an interview that Palpatine being her grandfather was a thing that was like always changing. Like her like lineage was like kind of always like back and forth. Like there was originally like a Obi-Wan, like a possible Obi-Wan connection, and then JJ was like, "Oh, Palpatine's your grandfather," and then later he was like, "Actually, we're not sure now." And is it not glaringly obvious? Oh my god.
No comment.
And then Kylo says something that I don't know if this has been a thing, so I want to get your read on it. He says they're a dyad because
Oh my.
Kylo's mom was Anakin's daughter, and Rey's grandfather's Palpatine. They're a dyad, two who are one. So is this confirming that Palpatine is Anakin's father? Because otherwise, that line makes no sense.
I will say no, because if you remember at the end of the movie, they kiss, and it has been explained that there is no family connection between the two at all. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Well, then, what does he mean? They're a dyad. They're two who are one. And then he says, "Yeah, my mom was the daughter of Vader. Palpatine's your grandfather." But what does that mean if they're not like if there's no familial connection? Like
Just too powerful.
they come from two powerful Siths. Is that the extent of it? Because that's like not exciting at all.
It is a terrible explanation. It is a terrible. It's just terrible, dude.
It feels I doubt this concept of a dyad was even a thing before this movie.
It was not.
There's a hint that they had a connection, but that doesn't. Why'd they have to make it something so binary? Like, there's a specific reason. It's like, why does there have to be a specific reason? Because it was Snoke who connected them in The Last Jedi, right? So why'd they have to come up with this? We already know why they're. All right, screw it.
It's so bad. It is. This is honestly probably the worst thing about the movie. It's so bad.
Oh god. Okay, so I love that Rey's parents were revealed to have been killed by a brand new character in the last movie of the trilogy. But in the original script, it was Kylo Ren who killed her parents, which is only slightly less stupid. But only slightly. So Kylo confronts Palpatine. And then I don't know what he's talking about when he says, "I know where she's going. She'll never be a Jedi." What's he talking about?
You know what would have been? I'm sorry, I can't think of. I don't know what to say. You know what would have been cool though if it would have been revealed that Snoke killed her parents, because if
Yeah.
Snoke was being controlled by Palpatine, Palpatine would have been basically wiping wiping out all the failed clones of his.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he himself would have been doing that. So that would have been cool. Like
Yeah,
maybe
like
Snoke would have been a creation to take out the failed clones or something. You know what I mean? It would have been.
yeah, like
That would
they
have been
like had Snoke and they didn't really flesh him out much, and then instead of connecting him to more things in this movie, they just create this Jedi hunter who's just bad at life and was an absolute
bad.
failure in every way.
So bad.
So stupid. Okay, so they go to a planet called Kef Bir, which is like surrounded by water. And again, I really like this planet. I think it's cool.
It's
I love,
actually a moon.
there's like waves crashing. It's a cool aesthetic. It's a cool vibe. I would love to explore this in a AAA Star Wars game. That would be freaking gangbusters.
It's one of the other moons of Endor.
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
Because obviously Return of the Jedi, it's an Endor moon. So now they're back on one of the moons. It's the oceanic planetoid whose gravitational pull drew in much of the Death Star's debris after it was destroyed over a nearby forest moon. Kef Bir is uninhabited, and as a result, a group of former First Order stormtroopers led by somebody who you will talk about here in a second have settled there for sanctuary. Though they don't know it, they're unwittingly living next to a major clue to the Sith redoubt of Exegol. But yeah, anyway.
Was that in the novelization?
This is Screen Rant, a more reliable source than the novelization.
I kind of want to read the novelization, but I also don't want to ever think about it ever.
You don't want to lose any more brain cells.
So Rey uses the dagger to determine the Wayfinder's location. The amount of questions I have about this absolute brain dead BS could fill an encyclopedia.
Why does she have to hold it?
It's like she
pulls something out of it.
She like looks at it. She's like, "Wait a minute," and then she holds it up to these ships, and then she's like, "It's in there because who predetermined that these ships would be in this exact spot? And like, what if they would have moved?
Pull the thing out you have to pull the little thing out of the dagger in the correct orientation to point.
Like, what if
random spot?
What if like the ship where the Wayfinder is would have eventually moved over time?
What if the ocean would have like moved it?
I'm actually speechless, guys. I don't know what to say.
Who came up with this?
This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen ever in my life. And there are actually people.
Like, what is happening?
There are people on this planet who think that this movie was an improvement over the last one, and I just want to know how severely you were dropped on your head. I should say that, but you're on crack.
It's bad. No, it's bad.
Okay, so new characters are introduced who do absolutely nothing but are made to feel important, and I like the animals. This is and then here's a thing that I never noticed, but now that I notice, it's gonna ruin my sleep patterns for the next 3 months. Finn's helping Jana, who cares? She's not really a character. Fix something in her ship hideout thing, and then he looks at it. He looks at a part and he says, "This is a First Order part." But in The Last Jedi, they revealed that one entity was making stuff for both the First Order and the Resistance. But now they're specifically First Order parts. So does he mean that that's a part that the First Order requested to be made for them?
That's probably what he means.
That's the only thing I can think of that makes sense.
I love the introduction of Jana, though.
Yeah, it's a great idea, but it's so it's like so just shoved in here with everything because they had to trim this movie to oblivion.
Imagine if like replace Rose Tico with Jana.
That would have actually been really good. Damn it.
Yeah, and then maybe introduce Rose in this movie, and introduce her as like I don't know somebody else, but because they did try to go down the route of having Finn find this love interest with the Resistance, but what about if they would have introduced a stormtrooper or a First Order trooper that left like Finn, and they developed this romance. It would have been more interesting.
Yeah, they like because in the Force Awakens it seemed like is Rey his love interest, and then in the Last Jedi it's like is Rose his love interest, but it's not till arrive here where you're like that should have been his love interest. And plus, I mean, I'm gonna sound like a SJW for 5 seconds, but it'd be cool to have a powerful black couple in a big franchise. I don't know. I think that would have been cool, but the rich white people involved didn't want John Boyega to have that big of a role, so whatever.
Honestly,
Okay.
I mean everything you're saying is true.
Yeah.
And like I actually really like the character of Rose Tico. We went over this, but I think it was just obviously like we said the execution of it. So I think they could have done her much better, and they could have done Finn much better, and they could have done Jana much better.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
that's all we're suggesting.
Yeah. So yeah, Jana's backstory and potential bond with Finn are interesting, but feels like the
Can I point out
filmmakers.
something?
Yeah.
Because it's this exact moment you're about to talk about when they're talking about the part, and they're both of their actings. They're acting here where she mentions something, and then John Boyega just kind of jumps up and spins around and sits down real quick and looks at her.
Oh yeah.
You can
their
immediately
chemistry was
tell
great.
The chemistry
Yeah,
was
for sure.
amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually glad you pointed that out because I would have totally not remembered.
It's a good part.
Yeah, it feels like the filmmakers are making up for lost time. If only there was a draft of this movie where Finn, I don't know, led a stormtrooper rebellion. And the reason I say that is because in the original script, that's exactly what he did. That they were building towards that, clearly. What the hell? I mean, to be fair, I'm going to give The Last Jedi flack because Rian Johnson included absolutely nothing that would have been a thread to something like that from the last movie. Like, he didn't include any other building blocks to that really at all. So, I mean, I partially blame him. Like, yeah.
Replace the horses with First Order insurrectionists. So have Canto Bite and have this be a place where there are deserters and people that maybe want to start an insurrection with the First Order, that they're in places like Canto Bite trying to disrupt the business of getting parts and whatnot. Like we find out Canto Bite was a place where they would sell weapons and stuff to the First Order and to the Resistance. So why not replace the horses there with maybe he finds a group there instead of on Kef Bir or whatever. Have these people be in Canto Bite, and he finds them there with Rose, and maybe they meet Jana at Canto Bite, and then they lead up this rebellion or this insurrection against the First Order that continues and carries over into this movie.
Dude, if they were on Canto Bite, it could have been like a Robin Hood, Men in Tights style group.
That would have been.
Where, like they're there specifically to screw things up and like vandalize and, obviously steal some money. Dang, that would have. I'm mad that you said that because now I'm going to be thinking about that and just crying because we never got it.
We got to clip that.
For sure, for sure.
I was making it up as I went, but like you understand that.
Yeah,
I think it would have been fire.
Yeah,
it would have carried over
great.
perfectly to this movie because you would have had it open up with maybe Poe and Finn and Jana and Rose in the Falcon, just getting away from the First Order who's chasing them because they started this insurrection on Canto Bite. Like,
Yeah, I think Poe should have been a part of the insurrection on Canto Bight because Poe's a pretty rebellious guy, especially in the Last Jedi. um, so there's a thing brought up with Jana. She talks about how like her and her group left the First Order because they had just like a feeling, and then Finn was like, "Oh, that was
Yes.
the Force because I had the same experience." And like the way they're talking about it implies that that's always been what it was, but we never really got that impression. Like it seems like Finn just left because he had that realization, but now it was the Force. Like it's almost like they should have set that up from the beginning. Like I said, I thought they were going to do that in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Like he gets broken free of his brainwashed state by the Force.
This is where
Why
JJ
didn't they just
starts
do
to
that?
yeah, no, this is where JJ starts to undo The Last Jedi, and really push his own story because he was probably thinking and setting up that, you know, whoever does the second movie was going to continue that, um, the Force aspect with Finn. Maybe not, but anyways, he tries to set it up in this movie by right here, and I actually like it. Like you said, it does. It's not, you know, can it's not what's the word I'm looking
Consistent?
for? Consistent, yeah,
Yeah.
with the past two movies, but whatever. I mean, I think it works for what he's setting up, and I think it does pay off at the end of the movie.
Yeah. And so Ray gets tired of the story being allowed to breathe and travels to the big ship where the Wayfinder is. And then there's forced tension with Poe and Finn again, where Poe's like, "What's she doing? She's alive." And then Finn's like, "Bro, she isn't feeling herself. You should be a little nicer, you piece of crap." And then Poe's like, "Is that right?" I forget what he even says, but they have like a argument for no reason because Finn's just a massive simp for this woman who seems to care about him less and less as the trilogy goes on. It's like, bro, move on.
This
Move
is where the
on.
writing is just horrible.
Come on. Like, why are they arguing for no reason? Like, this could have been good, but it's just wedged in here for no, like, it's stupid. I like the crash ship. Like the interior looks cool, the visuals and stuff, like the layout. I like it feels like, like it has a history, like you could imagine there was like this great battle, It was the same thing with the Force Awakens, how like on Jakku there were like those crashed destroyers and stuff, and it's like you could just imagine what possibly happened. I think they capture that pretty well here. I'm gonna read this for. This makes no sense. Ray goes through a door leading to a room that's somehow strong with the dark side. Did JJ or anyone else see the Empire Strikes Back? Yeah. So like, there was that cave on Dagobah that was strong with the dark side because it's in nature, so you can imagine, like think of the Force as like a spiritual thing. Spirits travel where? On the surface of the earth, they're traveling around and stuff. But like Rey just goes into this room and has a vision, the same vision she had of her as a Sith. But it's like I don't.
Why not, instead of going into some
What?
random room, why doesn't she just go up to like the Palpatine's throne and touch it and get like a Force echo of Return of the Jedi or something? I don't know.
This just felt clearly like either reshot or I don't know. How did nobody find the holocron? It's like out in the open or something. It's like not well hidden. This is the second. Wayfinder. This is the second Wayfinder that's not hidden well at all. I don't. You mean to tell me nobody found these things?
What happens next is really cool though.
The dark vision that Ray has leads to nothing and is over in 5 seconds.
That's terrible. Yeah, I completely forgot that was even a thing.
Okay, I actually like this. I'm gonna praise something again. Shocker, right? I can't believe it.
Why?
So Kylo finds Ray, and then he says, I'm trying to remember. I should have like written it verbatim, but he basically says, you wanted to prove to my mother that you're still a Jedi despite who you are, or something like that. And now you can't return to her, just like I can't. And so, it's like both of them can't return to Leia because of their new identities. Rey found out she's a Palpatine. She doesn't feel like she can face Leia. Kylo left to be a Jedi, and then he fell to the dark side. He doesn't feel like he can come back to her either. And that is a great freaking parallel.
So, yeah. No, that's amazing.
It
That's
just
what I was talking about.
continues the great parallels with Rey and Kylo. That's always been the most consistent thing here, and I really like it here. I feel like this is probably the most vulnerable and honest he's been. Like, he doesn't seem like he's like upset, he wants to fight. He's just like trying to plainly state, like, you're like me, why can't you just accept that? I've been trying to tell you that, and you won't listen.
Yeah, I think that her seeing the evil version of herself was just like too ham-fisted. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
but when Kylo shows up, he actually grabs the Wayfinder and destroys it, which I think was cool because I was like, oh, look, they're committing. And he destroys it, and whatever, they have this conversation, which I think is awesome because Kylo seems to be trying to be his own person for once, which is cool because I feel like this is where he should be in the third movie, and he's actually there, and he has this real conversation with her. And I think that honestly, this Kef Bir sequence of everything, including, like you said, the ruins of the second Death Star, is really cool. The visuals are cool. The story here is actually cool. The script, the dialogue is nice. Yeah, I agree. I think this is my favorite part. I think this is my favorite part of the movie, and it's what I alluded to earlier when I said this. I have one scene that is probably my favorite in the movie, and it's this whole instance on the second Death Star. So I know we're about to get into the fighting and stuff on it and everything else because this is probably the best part of the movie.
I agree with that sentiment. I feel that way too. So, interesting thing, Rey turns her saber on Kylo before he does. Because for a while, she ignites it immediately and slashes at him, and he doesn't have his out. He's just avoiding, it's almost like
It was cool.
he doesn't want to fight her right away, but then eventually he feels like, well, I have no choice because she's
then he's
freaking crazy.
Just jumps through the floor. Like drops to the floor.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
And then they start fighting and stuff, and Ma cut to Leia, who can sense him there. I guess like she's like senses Kylo, and then Maz once again is only in this movie to point out obvious stuff.
So
says
dumb, dude.
To reach her son would take all the strength she has left. No shit. Why? Shut up. Who needs subtext, right? Like, let the freaking audience put two and two together and realize what's going on. Imagine if in A New Hope, right, when Alderaan is blown up and Obi-Wan, like bends down and has to sit. Imagine like if like it like cut away to some like random character who was like, Obi-Wan is feeling, the pain of people being killed through the Force, and it's affecting him in a negative way. Okay, cool, because we wouldn't have been able to tell that that's what happened based on how it's being filmed. Like, it's so stupid. All right, I really like the duel between Rey and Kylo here. It's probably one of my favorites in the saga, if I'm going to be honest. And I don't know if you noticed this, but check this out. I love the contrast between Anakin dying on a fiery lava planet and Kylo being reborn on a water planet. And I think this is the only time this trilogy, again, echoes and contrasts previous movies in a way. And I hope it was on purpose, but it could have been an accident. but it seems like they actually thought about that, and I think that's
It's
cool.
almost too good for them to not
Yeah.
have planned it. Because I do like it, and I have a funny anecdote. When I was watching this in the theaters, I actually fell asleep during this. Uh, yeah, because it was kind of slow. It wasn't as action packed as
The
episode 3.
choreography isn't as tight as it's been in the previous movies, though. Like, it's not bad, but
Yeah.
it's a
No,
little
no,
weird.
it's not bad, but I was so checked out at this point. But watching it back, I really did appreciate that because, like you said, Anakin fell to the dark side on this lava planet fighting Obi-Wan. Now his grandson fighting on this water-covered planet
Yeah.
goes from being Sith to denying it and becoming uh, Jedi again, or Ben again. Really, Kylo
And
dies here.
uh, and that, because like Star Wars has always drawn from like religion and stuff like that. That echoes, in the Bible and probably other religious texts where like like a fire is always used as a sign of like like evil and like like
Destruction and water
wickedness
is
and
the
like
first. Yeah.
like being burned, and then water is used for like being reborn or being purified. So I mean,
And I'm gonna go a little bit further. You ready?
yeah.
And Padme was there, and she died trying to save Anakin. And Leia was there, and she died trying to save Ben.
Damn, yo, I'm gonna clip that.
I love
I did not think about. Oh
I
my god.
love the parallels. So what's sad is that Carrie Fisher passed away because imagine if she did try to use all of her strength to be there and to save Ben.
Well,
And then when
that's
Ben turned, he in turn, instead of like Anakin killing Padme, would have Ben saved Leia in that moment.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna read my notes about that verbatim, and then I want to talk about it more. So,
go ahead.
Carrie Fisher's passing ruined the impact that the Leia Kylo reunion could have had, and I can't totally fault them for trying. However, it feels jarring because of the artificial nature. She used her strength to speak one line to him, his name, not even projecting herself like Luke did in The Last Jedi, and somehow just that kills her. It would have been better for her to have been killed off at the beginning rather than to half-ass this moment. So, what do you think? Like, do you think, because like she says Ben, and then he turns around and like it doesn't even like show her that like she's projecting herself. So it's like I guess he saw her. Maybe she didn't do that. Maybe he just heard her. But it's like I don't know. Like what do you think? Like, do you think it was better that they at least tried, or do you think it would have been better to just not even attempt it because they knew that they couldn't totally do it? Because I'm a little split on that, to be honest.
I think two things. I can't accurately judge because I know in real life she passed away
Yeah.
before this. So anything we get is me thinking, okay, they're doing the best with what they got. The second thing is she is not Luke. So Luke has done this and practiced this specific force projection for so long, he could do what he did in The Last Jedi. Leia is not as skilled, even though they do try to show her as skilled in that one flashback, but maybe in terms of force power, she was not as skilled.
I thought
So
about that too. Like maybe
yeah,
like like she did do it, but it just took a toll on her quicker. Like
that's what
I
I
think
think,
that's
and
possible.
I think they tried to, allude to that in this because of what Maz Kanata says.
I'll still
And I
say
think
though,
that's awesome.
like like the trickery they had to use. Like I'm impressed that it's even
Yeah.
as good that that it was even as well executed as it ended up being. Like it could have ended up just being awful. Like
And
oh
here's
my
why I
god, why did they?
do
But it's not
yeah,
that bad.
I do like it because he didn't kill her. She sacrificed herself. Um, and in her doing that, it did affect him and Ray because they both felt it.
Yeah.
It affected him more, obviously, because it's his mother, and it was one of the catalysts in turning him. But what happens next is obviously she couldn't film any scenes, but Harrison Ford could. So I know you're going to talk about it, but Han Solo shows up, and I like that more because in the first movie, The Force Awakens, we get to see Kylo literally kill Han Solo.
Yeah.
So he shows back up instead, which I think works because we get to see literally Kylo killing him. So now it's like the opposite. Uh, Han Solo returns to save Ben, and he does.
I actually think Leia saying Ben might kind of be a parallel to Han saying it in The Force Awakens, because he yells it,
Yeah,
and then and his mom says it like softly and gently, and in both instances he turns around, but the aftermath of both is totally different. Like, I
yeah.
actually think there's something interesting to that. So
Like we said, this is probably the best part of the movie.
yeah, so then when she says his name, he has Ray on the ground, and it looked like for the first time he was about to kill her. Like, he like raises his saber, and then he hears his name and he turns around. Like, I wonder if he was really gonna do that, and if so, like, maybe I wonder like what would have brought him to that state, or like maybe he just wanted to like wound her fairly bad. I don't know, but it looked like he was heading for the kill shot. I was like, oh god.
Yeah,
And then Ray takes that opportunity to stab him, and then she heals him, and then dude, this line's never made me choke up before, but because of my life journey within like the past year or so has been about like being more authentic and being more vulnerable, and like like trying to be my authentic self, even though that hurts like a mother sometimes. So Ray's line, I did want to take your hand,
oh, dude.
Ben's hand, that made me choke up when I was rewatching it
Her
recently.
her acting during that was amazing.
I love how like like she like started crying, like I just love that, because it's like like in real life, like sometimes like we have to like, I mean, sometimes we feel like, like if we want someone to love us or whatever, we have to be this and we have to be that. But it's like, no, dude, like people who like truly care about you, they don't love who you're acting like, who you're pretending to be. They freaking love who you are, dude. That's who they care about. That's who they're trying to reach. And like I love that look of realization on his face, like he just finally got it in that moment. And then Finn and Poe here for like generic companions in an RPG.
Yeah,
Um,
literally.
and then
Like,
they,
why were they on the like? They didn't need to be there.
dude, I just love that moment where like Finn's running out to her, and then she force pushes him like, you don't have to be in this scene, Finn. Leave me alone. And then
Yeah,
he
honestly,
just
that was a
shouts
cool
Ray
moment.
like 5 times, like, jeez. And then so they travel back to where the base is and find out Leia died. And dude, Chewie's reaction here, oh my god. He like just like cries out, and then he falls to his knees.
Goated character.
Like, yeah, like he lost his brother in The Force Awakens, and in this movie he lost his sister.
Yeah.
Like, my god, like I don't know how he's still hanging on, honestly. Like, he is, as far as like like will and heart, he is one of the strongest characters in this franchise,
Oh,
because
definitely.
he's experienced more hardship than a lot of them. He's actually in a weird way kind of a role model, now that I think about it, and I think that's pretty cool. So then back on Kef Beer, Kylo hears a voice saying, "Hey kid." Now, I thought when I saw the movie for the first time, I thought that was Luke, because at the end of Last Jedi, he says, "See you around, kid."
Yeah.
And in the original script, he does like speak to Kylo Ren, as a Force ghost. I'm so mad that they just dropped that plot and thought nobody would notice. Like, come on, man. Um, and then he turns around and it's Han Solo. So obviously he's not a Force ghost. So this just seems like Ben like seeing like a manifestation of his own memories, because that's basically what like he says, like I'm your memory or something like that. Like he says you're just a memory, and then he's like, yeah, your memory. So it's I actually think it's kind of cool because it's like we've only seen characters who passed away show up as specifically Force ghosts, and they're always like a Jedi, you know. But like here, we see somebody show up in a similar way, but it's just a lost loved one, like just a regular person, but they appear because somebody's thinking about them. Like I think that's interesting. Like that's something we've never seen before in Star Wars,
Yeah.
and it's like it opens up the universe to where like it doesn't always have to be about like the Force and supernatural stuff, because at the end of the day, these stories are about people experiencing things, so then he says, I miss you, son. And then Kylo says, your son is dead. And then Han says, no, Kylo Ren is dead. My son is alive. And then, that's a
Part's
callback
awesome.
to The
Yeah.
Force
The Force,
Awakens,
yeah.
to where like he's like, take off that helmet. What do you think you'll see if I do? The face of my son, and then he's like, your son is, I think he also says, your son's dead in that movie too. And then,
Yeah.
Ben says I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And then, he takes out his lightsaber, and then Han says, yeah, you do. And then, it's obvious. Again, it's like a mirror of that scene, because in that scene, he took out his lightsaber and stabbed Han. In this, he takes his lightsaber and throws it. And dude, I never noticed
I
this.
love that scene.
I never noticed this until recently, but he says, Dad. That's the first time we hear him call Han Dad. And then he looks like he's about to say something, and then he like starts choking up, and then Han smiles and he says, I know. So I think that was a callback to when Leia said, I love you in Empire, and he says, I know. So I think
that's a good catch.
Kylo,
Yeah, he was gonna say
I think Kylo was going to say, Dad, I love you, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. And then Han's like, I know.
Wow, what a
I know
catch.
you love me.
I never thought about that.
And like that's so, I'm actually getting chills right now just talking about it, because like
that's really good.
Like that shows that moment in The Force Awakens when he's like trying to say, no, I'm a villain, and your son's dead and you can't bring me back, like Han being his father, and that fatherly instinct, he could tell his son still loved him at least a little bit, and that is just freaking awesome. Like I can't
it
say
feels,
anything but
like
positive things about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Where am I?
Well, if you think about it, the original trilogy is, there's Vader and Luke, father and son. Now it's like Kylo and Han, father and son. It's good, man. It's a good story. It's a good parallel.
Yeah, for sure. So Ben Solo turns back to the light, and unfortunately, I can't criticize this, but my problems with his arc have to do with everything that happens after this scene. This is the last time it's good. Everything after this sucks to high heaven, and I'm gonna explain why.
The acting and the performance and the sequences.
Not even
cool.
just that, just
it's
what
good, but like the execution like is good, but like the route they take is the wrong route.
So, I'm gonna rip this movie a way larger one than I have.
It's a scenic route, but it's the wrong route.
Yeah. So Palpatine,
a different way.
So that so then Palpatine says to blow up Kijimi because it's a place they're familiar with, as if it's significant. Like it's a place we've went to for like 5 minutes, and it's introduced in this movie, and none of the characters except Poe know anybody there. But then when they blow it up, it's supposed to be like this big sad thing for anybody but Poe, and it's like, were they just trying to upset Poe and that's it? Like, I don't understand. Like, why'd they blow up that planet of all? Okay. fine, whatever. You made one guy sad, and that's it. Cool. That's really gonna shake the whole resistance. So every ship in this fleet is a Death Star because all these movies have to have some kind of a Death Star. Well, now they're individual ships, but every one of them has the power of a Death Star. They couldn't think of anything else.
Yeah, no
And
comment.
so we're in the final battle. Oh no, it's before the battle, and they're really trying to make post conflict believable, and I respect that, and I can feel it, but it feels like it's just like rushed stuff they're trying to do for his character. And then Lando gives Poe advice, because Poe says, "I'm not ready," and then Lando says, "Neither was I, or Luke, or Han, or Leia." And it's like, when did we ever see them have doubts about their missions in the original trilogy? I don't feel like. I mean, Luke had some doubts about like being a Jedi, but like I felt like for the most part, the three of them and everyone else were like on top of everything, and they were optimistic. I never saw them
There's a
like
lot more there's
question their
optimism. Yeah,
mission. But now Lando's acting like, oh, we felt how you feel now. It's off screen, maybe. Like, what? I don't. It just feels like they're like trying to build a relationship with Lando and Poe. Like Lando's like a mentor character, which is cool. But it's like I feel like they're trying to do it in a way that makes no sense. I don't know. And then, I wrote here, but I don't remember what it's referring to. But it's the best pun I've ever come up with. Are you ready?
yeah.
Dio ex machina. Because I forget what he said, but he says something that helps them out in
Of
a way
course, he
that's
has to.
like
He has to be in it and useful somehow.
he's really trying, bless his heart.
No.
And then Ray's suddenly on Octo because this movie doesn't know what an establishing shot is.
At this point, I was so like it was just hard to watch, honestly, because it just got so random and absurd. Like we cannot be switching this much. Like it's like a montage that never ends.
It's like the first act of Rogue One. And then Ray, she like crashes the ship, I guess on purpose. I don't know, because she's lost all hope, which I can kind of understand why. Fair enough. And then she's gonna throw the lightsaber, and then Force Ghost Luke catches it, and he's like, "A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect than this." And it feels like, on one hand, it feels like a taunt to Rian Johnson and a suck up to the fans who hated that. But he had an arc in that movie, so now he is an angry hermit. However, it still violates his freaking character, because what did Yoda say in Empire? War not make one great. Luminous weapons are we, not this crude matter. In Return of the Jedi, Luke throws his lightsaber. In Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan says, this weapon is your life, because, the Jedi were dogmatic, and then Luke throwing his lightsaber was a rejection of that. So now here he is catching the lightsaber that she's going to throw, and he says, a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. No, it doesn't. It's a tool. It's a lightsaber. It's not a freaking Bible or a Torah or what. Like, who cares? You had another one anyway. You gave her Leia's lightsaber, and she had two. Why do you? This clearly just feels like them trying to like jab at Rian Johnson, and fans could be like, "Oh, screw you, Rian Johnson." Like it's so pointless, and it kind of ruins Luke's character.
Everything you said's perfect. I can't
Yeah.
add anything. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Um,
Why have Luke throw down his lightsaber in Return of the Jedi and then say this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
God. And then Luke, in one of the greatest retcons of all time, I have to give the writers. He says it was fear that kept him on Octo. I'm gonna just stare into the camera. so that people can see how unhappy I am about this. It was fear that kept him on Oct. You remember in Last Jedi when he said, "I came here to die"? Did he seem afraid, or did he just seem like totally resigned to everything? I
I
mean,
guess they're talking about his fear of
I mean,
Kylo Ren, because he did have fear in his eyes when he went to kill him. And
I'm not saying it
maybe I
makes
don't know if that was
no
fear.
sense, but it just feels
It's
like
just it's bad. It's bad. It's just why? Why are we here?
And then, no, it gets actually that was one of that was one of the best retcons of all time. This is truly the best retcon of all time. I think even better than Rey being a Palpatine, or really close. Luke, not only did Luke know Rey was a Palpatine, but he says Leia knew it
Leia
too.
knew the whole time. Yeah.
Nope. No,
No.
no. In Last Jedi, he asked, "Who are you? Who are you?" He asked her that like twice. Because she just showed up. And he's like, "Who are you? Where are
It's
you
like
from?"
they just say things and they don't think that like people like me and you remember the previous movie. It's like all they're writing. It's like JJ was like in there writing this with the writers, and then they were like trying to figure it out. And he was like, "Nah, I don't think they'll think about the previous movie."
Like,
Uh,
when
okay.
when did any of them ever indicate that they knew? I'm pretty sure Luke, in his traumatized state,
Wasn't thinking about that.
if he had an inkling that this random lady who showed up is the granddaughter of the guy who made my father fall to the dark side and ruined me and other people's lives, he would have told her to get packing immediately. Are you? Oh my god. Okay,
We
whatever.
may need to just take a break, to decompress or whatever.
I want to
Regroup.
I want to punch a hole through my wall.
I don't understand.
And
this
now,
movie.
yeah, apparently Leia had a lightsaber because that's
Okay.
something that needed to happen, I guess.
It was irrelevant, but her lightsaber is cool. So
I like that it's
allowed.
yellow, and we've never, as far as I know, we've never seen a yellow lightsaber. Okay, cool, great. All the colors in the rainbow, fantastic.
No. Her lightsaber was blue.
No, he pulls. Oh yeah, was it? Oh no,
Ray's is like yellow. Leia's it's like a rose gold and a gold hilt, and then
Oh,
her
okay.
blade was blue.
Okay, yeah.
Because you remember the flashbacks, it was green
Yeah.
and blue, I believe.
And then here's another. I don't know if this is a retcon. Leia had a vision of her son dying once she finished her Jedi training. And I guess that's why she stopped. Why did they feel the need to add this?
Yeah, it was.
What does this add to the movie?
I don't know.
Nothing. Like
I don't know.
Like it just needed a reason for her not to be a Jedi, but like why not just have her be a Jedi? Like why not just have her be like Luke? He's in the army and he's also a Jedi. Like that would have been cool, at least. Like that was what George wanted to do in his movies, I think. What the flim flam, dog. And then here, I'm mad to say that when I first saw this movie, this made me emotional for some dumb reason. But now, while watching it now, it's just so Luke lifts the X-wing out of the water. You get it?
Okay.
It's a callback because he couldn't do
callback.
that in Empire Strikes Back, and this movie's terrible.
I love this movie so much.
R2 conveniently gives C-3PO his memory back.
But he only gives him his memory back up to the point of the Force Awakens, so he completely forgets the Last Jedi. if you, I'm serious. I don't know if you caught that, because he says something and it's like he doesn't remember that it happened in the Last Jedi.
Oh my god!
He does give him his memory back, but it's literally like only. I don't know if you caught that.
R2 noticed that he had his memory wiped, and he's like, I could give it back to him, but I should just probably erase this.
Garbage.
He doesn't need to remember that movie. It's fine. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's like poetry.
So that they won. So they're back at the base and they're talking about their plan to do stuff. And then Beaumont Kin, because this character is only in this movie to say stupid BS. He says,
I have a question for you.
Okay, what?
Is this gonna be longer than our episode 3 retrospective?
I don't know, man.
Because we just keep talking about the stupid stuff.
That's like 90% of my notes, honestly. It started out as like me actually like writing out what happens, but it slowly became this. Okay, so and then Beaumont Kin, in his endless words of wisdom, says, "We need to pull some Haldo maneuvers, do some real damage." And then either Finn or Poe's like, "Come on, that move was 1 in a million." Shut
best line in the movie.
Shut
up.
No, like that obviously feels like to me like either Chris Terrio or J.J. Abrams specifically wanted to point out how dumb they thought that was. That's the only reason somebody would bring that. Like, what? Why would they have a character who's been in war be like, we need to do this thing that involves one of us flying our ship into a fleet of ships and killing ourselves? Are you stupid? Sorry. I gotta calm down.
The Holdo maneuver was like
I gotta calm
interesting, but like once you open that box, you can't close it back up, and they are trying to close it back up, but like I just said, you can't because they did it. So I don't know. It's like
I don't know if you heard, but I actually got like visually mad for a second. I'm like, okay,
I can't make sense of this.
I'm just gonna move on though. Okay, so
we can't dwell.
So they're in the final battle, and then in the big First Order ship, the main cruiser ship, I don't know these terms. They're like, they're trying to track our broadcasting signal, so we have to turn it off. And then so they can't track it anymore. And then Finn looks at one of the ships and he says, "It's in that one." And then Rose is like, "How do you know?" And then he like looks practically at the freaking camera and says, "A feeling." So now they are treating, if anybody thought that the previous movies treated the Force like it was a joke, no. This is treating the Force like a joke. That the Force just told Finn exactly where this thing is. That they need to. Oh, that's the shit. Like, it. What? What? Oh my God. And then I do like them using the animals that were on Kefir for the ground assault. I think that's cool. And, Jana has like a high tech bow and arrow, like Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. I think that's cool. That's a cool aesthetic. That's a cool theme.
So the final, you're right. The final battle is story-wise trash, but in execution, it's like with this movie, and honestly, it's like with almost the entirety of the sequel trilogy. You have one or the other. You have amazing execution, terrible story, or you have great story, terrible execution. Very rarely do you get them balanced.
Yeah, true.
So,
and that fits the nature versus technology theme that was highly prevalent in the original trilogy. I think that's a cool way to show it that we haven't really seen.
And I really do like this end battle, though. It's growing on me over time. I do like it a lot.
And then, so, Rey goes into Palpatine's lair, and, again, with the cultists, they're, like, chanting loudly, and it's genuinely creepy, And then I think, like, Palpatine says, your parents were weak or something, and Another great line from Rey that just shows the great dialogue in this movie. She says, "My parents were strong. They saved me from you." Why? And then they did this in The Last Jedi, and they're doing it again in this movie, where the main villain shows the protagonist their allies dying in a battle. Because he like opens up the
They did this in
sky and
Return
he's
of the
like,
Jedi
"Look,
a lot.
everyone's yeah," but like
Yeah.
they did it in the last movie, and they're doing it again.
They did it, yeah, almost exactly
What
like they
the
did in The Last Jedi. Yeah, you're right.
You can't come up with anything else, you hacks.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And then I like Kylo Ren arrives, and I just love that after he got his redemption and he finally becomes himself again. He has absolutely no dialogue, and he doesn't do a damn thing. I love it. They absolutely assassinated his character when he wasn't looking. In the last act of the movie, bro. Like, but it's cool to see him using a blaster, like his dad. You know, he even does the shot where he shoots somebody in back of him when he's not even looking.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. You know, it's like, oh, he's like his dad. Cool. And then he tries to fight the Knights of Ren with no weapon
See, like, I love this part
because
It's
he's
good.
stupid. I forgot the Knights of Ren were even in this movie. Literally, I saw them show up, and I'm like, oh yeah, you guys, whoever you are. No interaction with Kylo Ren or dialogue whatsoever. Kylo Ren put this group together to overthrow Luke prior to Force Awakens. They finally show up in this movie, and they don't talk to him once. And he doesn't talk to them once.
I like it.
Why are we even here?
It's like, I like it because I feel like there's a type of tension between them. Like, yeah, they did revolt against Luke at the Academy, but like, there's some kind of tension to where they're almost mad that he was the favorite or the most powerful, and it's like that classic Sith thing where it's like, I got to kill my master type of thing.
I mean, that would have been cool to actually see.
That's my headcanon.
I mean, that's a great headcanon, but I just wish something like that was actually here. Or anything.
Anything.
I wrote, I don't know what I made. I wrote, I know Kylo throwing his lightsaber. Oh, yeah. So he throws his lightsaber, and, you know, that was good symbolism and stuff. It was a twist on the scene in The Force Awakens, but he really should have brought it with him here instead of just a blaster because he kind of needed it. And then I don't know, like the Knights of Ren, they just beat Kylo Ren up with the blunt side of their weapons. But like, why don't they just kill him at this point? Like, I don't see why they're.
I mean, I hate this in any kind of media. Like when you could easily just kill somebody and you like because that's your goal, and then you just choose not to.
And then I do like Palpatine wants Rey to strike him down, and then like she senses Kylo, so she raises her saber, and then she puts it behind her back and transfers it to him, and then he does like a gesture, like he just did a magic trick, like a bow, and it's like that shows a little bit of Ben's personality, and again,
you really see Ben's personality in this final scene.
It's a great physical performance by Adam Driver too. You know, like he. 100%. They didn't let him be a character. You know, I heard there's a YouTuber who talked about this movie, and he brought up a good point. He said this made him mad because it's like if they would have paced this trilogy properly, Ben Solo would have been redeemed either in The Last Jedi or like close to the end of The Last Jedi leading into this movie. But they do it way too quick, and then he, you know, like it's so rushed, and he has nothing to do, and it's like it could have been so good, and it was just jack squat. Where is it? So then Palpatine, Kylo and Rey finally meet up, and then Palpatine steals Rey and Kylo's collective life force because they're a dyad, which is stupid, and it somehow not only rejuvenates him, but gives him a new outfit. He had a Sailor Moon transformation, I guess. Cool. I don't know. And then there's that moment where Poe has a breakdown because because everybody's getting wiped out and he feels hopeless, and it's actually a pretty great moment. Oscar Isaac's performance here is really freaking good. That guy's just a top tier actor, in my opinion.
Well, he is. I mean, dude, he's been in everything lately.
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
not just lately, but I mean, he's in everything.
And then it's over soon because Lando shows up in a scene that's basically like the on your left scene from Avengers Endgame, but not as good.
Or it's like when he showed up in Return of the Jedi.
Oh yeah, like there are more of us, Poe. There are more of us, and I like that. Like I can't hate this moment. Like
Good scene.
it's fun.
Good scene.
And then
Yeah, it's fun.
Palpatine literally yeets Kylo out of the final battle. He falls down like a chasm, and then he's not there for like 90% of it. Because we can't let Ben Solo, the character that we've spent the whole trilogy redeeming, participate in the final battle and actually be a character. You know what I mean? Like that would be good, and that's not what we were going for. So, um, Palpatine's somehow a god because he shoots lightning into the sky and starts blowing up a whole bunch of the resistance ships. What?
Okay, the
How
sound
has he always
design
been
here.
this powerful? I don't get it.
No, I don't know. He just found these new powers, but the yeah. So sorry.
I found these at the secondhand shop. They're very nice, aren't they?
I'm making great sense of this movie for you.
He just he absorbed the dyad life force and just instantly
sorry.
got OP. Yeah,
He's the triad. That's what he is.
He was the third member, and now it's a triad. So Rey hears a bunch of Jedi main character voices because she's on the floor and she's like in a daze. And I've heard who it's like Anakin, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Ahsoka,
Babu Frick,
Freddie Prinze. But Babu Frick was like the only one who was missing. Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character from Rebels or something, I think, and a whole bunch of other people who I don't know or remember. Which is a callback to at the beginning of the movie, she was like trying to hear the voices of the other Jedi because apparently that's a thing, which I can't say that doesn't make sense, but it feels kind of ham-fisted. But I mean, that's probably a thing in expanded media and whatnot.
Well, they did that with Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
In the prequels. Yeah.
And then I love Anakin says bring balance just as I did. And I just love that he has that line because he was the one who threw Palpatine down the shaft and oh wait, I'm going to talk about that later, so forget it. Rey beats Palpatine in the laziest, most anticlimactic way possible.
He gave him the shaft.
But by now, Palpatine should know that him shooting lightning never ends well. Also, Rey can shoot lightning, but she never does in the rest of this movie. She doesn't kill Palpatine by firing her own lightning. No, she just blocks his lightning with not one but two lightsabers and then fires it back at him, and that's enough to kill him. But him falling down a shaft and then the Death Star blowing up wasn't enough to kill him, but this apparently is.
I have a question
Screw
for
you.
So I hate the fact that she does kill him because he's basically strike me down and I'll become more powerful than you could possibly imagine type of thing. And
she did the thing that he wanted her to do.
So why do that? But I'm thinking about, is this supposed to be a callback to Mace Windu when he was redirecting the lightning back at him to kill him? So maybe that's the loophole in this.
Yeah, maybe.
But I shouldn't be left wondering.
I mean, I'll just save it. I mean, because we're pretty much so. I wrote here. Kylo shows up in time to die. Great time. He showed up right on time to die. him and Rey kiss, and the franchise was ruined forever. So you're in the theater, you're watching this movie. Rey and Kylo Ren kiss.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? What was going through your head?
I was like, oh, of course they went there.
Yeah,
Twitter's gonna be on fire. And then I walked out of the theater before I saw the ending.
Yeah, I just can't think of a reason to do this. Like, if they would have hugged, I would have had no problem with that. No problem with that. You know, Ben can finally show affection, and so they hug. Cool payoff to their dynamic and everything. But this is just to satisfy the Raylos, and you can't convince me otherwise.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
But I think it's because, you know, like he dies and then he vanishes, and then it shows Leia vanishing. And the first time I saw, a few times when I saw this movie, that made me choke up, because it's like,
Yeah.
he got to be reunited with his mom again. And I think that's beautiful, you know? So that's cool. And then we head back to the base. Everyone hugs and they're celebrating because they killed the Emperor again. But who's to say he's actually dead now? Because this franchise has no consistency anymore. And then Maz Kanata's like, I have something for you, Chewie. And then she pulls out a giant medal to satisfy the five a-holes who were like, hey, why did Chewie get a medal at the end of A New Hope? So they put it in this movie because they thought people would like it. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, why don't we just scrape even more stuff from the bottom of the barrel? Screw it. Like, why not bring back Jar Jar Binks? Screw it. Who cares? Who cares? Like, why? Where's the line that you've drawn here?
Yeah.
Where does it
rough,
end?
Man. It's rough.
So then Rey goes back to Tatooine because
Why
people making Star Wars stuff recently love Tatooine for some reason. I don't know why they keep showing Tatooine. Who cares about Tatooine? It sucks. That's the whole point. Luke hated it. It sucks. Why do we have to keep seeing it?
I agree.
And then she buries Luke and Leia's sabers. Fine, whatever. They both passed away. I don't have a problem with that. And then in a callback to the scene at the festival on Pasana, a lady asks who she is, and then she says Rey, and then she's like, "What's your family?" Or Rey who? And then she looks over and sees Luke and Leia, Force Ghosts, and then she says triumphantly, "Rey Skywalker." So, how do you feel about this? Because I have two ways that I think about it, but I think one of those ways could just be to prevent me from killing myself.
No, she's not. Like, I mean, literally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we're like okay with this now, it's like, okay, you can just be whoever you want. Which, I mean, you can. You decide who you are, but
Yeah.
like, also, if you decide who you are, then your name doesn't define you. So why does it matter?
Yeah, I
So
think
if it matters, just say, I'm Rey.
I'm just Rey, which would have also been a callback to that moment, but instead of her saying it in like a solemn way, she's happy. Like, I'm just Rey, and that's okay.
Now she could have been like, I'm Rey. If she said I'm Rey Palpatine, then she is changing what Palpatine means. But if she's like, okay, well, Palpatine is obviously notorious, I don't want to say that.
Yeah.
Then I get that as well. But like, if you say you're Rey Skywalker, then what are you trying to get across? That because you're Palpatine, that makes you bad? Like, no, that your name doesn't matter. So if your name doesn't matter, then why are you whatever? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like how another way, I mean, that was the initial way I thought of it, but then I also kind of thought about it and like she's taken on that name in like a spirit and like a
Spiritual success.
like a spiritual successor, foster child type thing. But the thing is, I mean, that it would have made more sense because she didn't really have a good relationship with Luke until they forced that to be the case in this movie.
Yeah.
But you know, she had a close relationship with Leia, so if anything, she should have taken Organa as her last name. I think that would have made
Yeah,
sense
they never mentioned that in the movies.
because
Like, but
her and Luke didn't have a familial connection, but her and Leia kind of sure did.
well, you know, people will say like, "Oh, well, Leia Organa," but she's actually Leia Skywalker, so she
Yeah,
takes a different name. Which I mean, that's never been the issue, honestly.
yeah,
Um, like no one, that's not the issue. The issue is we're establishing that your name doesn't define you. So then it's like, why are we then establishing that your name defines you at the end? So
yeah. It's
that's what I have
yeah,
an issue with.
and it's like the rise of Skywalker. Like you know what Skywalker rose? Ben Solo, but you killed him instead of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they could have done like a Prince Zuko thing where like he has to spend the rest of his life atoning for the atrocities he committed. And it's like he wouldn't be a hero, you know. He'd just be like, you know, like he has to set things right and that would take his whole life. And like you could have had like a franchise with him or like he could have shown up in other things and been like, you know, like he could have been like an outcast and you know, like people who see him where if he travels somewhere who like know who he is, just like literally try to kill him. Because they're like, oh, you know, you're Kylo Ren, you know, you've done really bad things and you know screw you and my family was affected by what you've done and he's like you know I get that you hate me but I'm trying to do right and I'm not asking for your forgiveness but just let me at least prove you know like that could have been so interesting but it's like no they killed the Skywalker and now we still have a Skywalker because we have to have a Skywalker because we can't have Star Wars stuff without Skywalkers. But it's a spiritual Skywalker. It's like it's such a rigmarole way to do something that they could have already just done naturally, but they chose not to.
My biggest thing is Palpatine won in the end because
Yeah,
the Skywalkers are dead.
yeah. I mean, Ray
And
technically has his life force in him, right? Wasn't that the implication? He said, "Strike me down, and you'll absorb my life force, and then be my successor."
bro, if you ask me any question about life force in Star Wars, I have no idea how to answer it because they didn't explain it.
Oh, God. Okay, so that's our thoughts on Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I think it's safe to say it's probably my favorite Star Wars. I couldn't even I couldn't even come into that joke. Yeah, it
I
sucks.
almost kicked you out of the call for that.
It sucks.
It's terrible,
It's
dude.
a
It's not. It doesn't just suck. It's
it's a
terrible.
corporate made sterile trying to please everyone, pleasing nobody. Just
Movie.
stick to the status quo and don't try to shake up your franchise to
Play
lose
it
our
safe.
bottom line. Pile of absolute trash with some
With one good scene.
with some bright moments that don't really make up for anything.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Like we were like, oh, you know, it's just gonna be a breezy episode because we're just gonna like be riffing the whole time. But
It's our second longest.
I started to realize as I was writing my notes that I feel as a lover of film, as somebody who still ultimately loves this franchise because I've loved it for a long part of my life, that I feel like it's kind of my mission to hold this movie's feet to the fire. For you know, like
yes.
I'm a you know, like we're like you know the judge, jury, and executioner. It's like no, we're not going to let you off easy for all the crimes you committed. We're going to have a long trial, and you know it'll be thorough.
That's a great way to put it. I think I'm going to call it that. The trial of
Oh, cool.
the Skywalkers.
Find the defendant super freaking guilty.
Guilty of trash. All right.